I became the god of light. Greetings, fellow multiversal adventurers. It's an honor to have you back in this saga that has us all hooked. Official channel statement: this story is 100% epic fiction. So please don't attempt real magic, the results aren't guaranteed and insurance won't cover it. The rights to this masterpiece belong entirely to its brilliant original author. We are just a barge sharing it with you. Do you want to keep being part of this amazing community? Join our ninja army of subscribers on YouTube and give this content a like. And for true fans, our Patreon has exclusive ninjutsu waiting for you. Chapter 228: The Palace Inside the Golden Gate. Especially the umbrella leaves, just looking at them gave Richard a sense of sharpness. Unable to resist, he took a piece of firm beef jerky and gently slid it across the umbrella leaves. In the blink of an eye, the beef jerky split in two. Richard and the others were horrified, and even more curious about the umbrella's origin, asking questions one after another. Suyun casually explained, "I got it by chance, I don't really know." The others were disappointed. Emma, as if remembering something, continued to ask in surprise, "And your skills?" Like a movie spy, everyone was amazed, recalling his terrifying skills earlier. Suyun, to change the subject, he took out a section of black spear. "This is..." The others' attention shifted to it. Suyun said, "This is the metal used to create the trap on that stone bridge. I felt it was special, so I took a piece. Can I see it?" Professor Luca couldn't help but ask. Suyun didn't say anything, simply handing him the spear. Professor Luca exclaimed in amazement as he examined the door. "Amazing. What kind of metal alloy is this? How did it not rust after thousands of years? Clearly, it must be an unknown metal." A series of questions tumbled from his lips. After a moment of astonishment, Richard couldn't help but say, "I don't know if it's amazing or not, I only know that we should focus our attention on the golden door in front of us." Hearing this, the others shifted their gaze to the door and began to examine it closely. Upon closer inspection, they discovered that this door was also carved with the sun god, exactly the same as the golden door outside, as if it had been made from the same mold. Suyun said, "The real door outside is a golden door, and there's one identical one here, so there must be an important place inside." Everyone thought about it and agreed that he was right. "Then what are we waiting for? Let's go in quickly," the bodyguard Sean said impatiently. As he spoke, he hurriedly walked to the door and tried to push it open. Unfortunately, his strength was too weak, and he had little effect on the heavy golden door. "Come and help," he hurriedly said to the others. Carlos, Matt, and the others nodded and quickly stepped forward to push open the golden door together. A series of rumbling sounds echoed throughout the space. The golden door slowly moved, and a burst of gas escaped. Carlos and the others, who were prepared, immediately held their breath. Surprisingly, when they inadvertently breathed in the leaked air, they didn't smell any decay. Instead, they felt a refreshing coolness. "The air inside is circulating," Emma and the others exclaimed in surprise. After their initial surprise, they forgot all about it, because a scene sealed for thousands of years was about to be revealed to them, and everyone was excited. When the golden door was about 1/3 open, Suyun and the others peeked inside with their flashlights and were astonished. The space inside was enormous, the ceiling alone appeared to be nearly 10 meters high. Their eyes were now drawn to the scene on the ceiling. Bright stars were embedded in the ceiling, forming a vast starry sky. A pure white light shone down from those stars, making it feel as if they were truly under a starry sky, giving them a sense of immersion. After observing for a moment, Professor Luca, with his extensive knowledge, immediately recognized the familiar arrangement of the stars and exclaimed in surprise, "These are constellations." His remark brought everyone else, lost in the beauty of the scene, back to reality. Upon closer inspection, those unfamiliar with the night sky thought nothing of it, while a few genuinely found them familiar. Suyun, with his sharp memory, quickly identified the constellation above the rooftop. He said, "Judging from their appearance, these stars form the constellations Orion, Sirius, and Draco." Orion, Sirius, Draco. Professor Luca and the others immediately understood. No wonder they looked familiar. "What's the connection between these stars?" Tam asked, bewildered. "Why are they placed overhead? Didn't we talk about it before?" Carlos glanced at him and said, "I remember Orion. The ancient Egyptians considered it the abode of the gods." He then looked at Suyun. Seeing his gesture, the others instinctively looked over as well. Their experiences along the way had made them feel that this little guy was like an encyclopedia, able to answer any question. So now, They habitually looked over, hoping Soo-yoon could explain something. Soo-yoon's lips twitched slightly as he explained, Draco represents the North Star of the past and future. Past, future, North Star. Those unfamiliar with constellations were immediately puzzled, unable to understand how Draco was related to the North Star. What do you mean? Richard couldn't help but ask. Soo-yoon pointed to the star chart in the sky and explained, the constellations we see now are more like constellations from thousands of years ago than current ones. You should all know that celestial phenomena change over time. Thousands of years ago, Draco Greek letter Alpha was considered the North Star by the ancient Egyptians, the North Star of the past. However, the current North Star has shifted to Ursa Minor Greek letter Alpha as the axis of rotation has changed, completing a cycle with Draco Greek letter Alpha, and more than 10,000 years from now, it will become the North Star again, hence the name Future North Star. Carlos and the others suddenly understood. What is Sirius? Tam asked curiously. Soo-yoon said, the ancient Egyptians valued Sirius highly. In ancient Egypt, Sirius was associated with many gods, and their calendar was even based on the sunrise over Sirius. However, there's something strange here. Look, there's a small companion star over there, following his direction. Everyone looked over. They looked at Sirius and indeed found another star nearby. That smaller one is Sirius B, orbiting Sirius A. It's very small and dim. Logically, it should be completely invisible to the naked eye, but in this night sky, it's clearly marked. We modern people need telescopes to see these things, yet the ancient Egyptians understood them so clearly. The civilization of the ancient Egyptians is truly strange. Soo-yoon shook his head. They were developing very well in ancient times, but as time went by, their civilization didn't progress. In fact, it showed signs of regression, Professor Lucas said. I've heard some rumors about this. Legend has it that some survivors of the Atlantis civilization, which was submerged by a flood, traveled to Egypt and other countries, spreading their knowledge, like the strange Maya, who I've heard also had contact with the Atlanteans. If that's true, it would explain why so much knowledge far beyond the level of its time was passed down in ancient times. Everyone listened to the various rumors, their faces filled with astonishment. Their hearts filled with a desire to explore the ancient world. Chapter 329. A towering figure. Richard was surprised for a moment, then turned his attention to the treasure. I think we should focus our attention on the treasure. Hearing this, the others snapped out of their daze and almost forgot their main purpose. The golden doors had all been pushed open, and everyone shone their flashlights into the darkness. Beams of golden light flashed, almost blinding them. They were willing to bet that even the scattered glimpses they saw contained more gold than outside. Richard and the others were overjoyed and instinctively wanted to rush in. Soo-yoon said calmly, be careful of the traps. These words immediately sobered the previously envious group, as if doused with cold water. They instinctively recalled the terrifying traps on the stone bridge, and cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. Yes, it's better to be careful. Instinctively, everyone looked at Soo-yoon, asking what to do. Soo-yoon hesitated for a moment, about to say something. Suddenly, he noticed something and immediately looked to his right. Just as everyone was wondering, a voice startled them. A series of familiar, loud scraping sounds from the stone door echoed in their ears. Richard and the others' expressions changed drastically. Their first thought was that they had triggered some kind of trap. However, they quickly realized what was happening when Soo-yoon said, someone's coming, it's them. Richard exclaimed in surprise. The others understood and immediately tensed up. Weren't they trapped in the back? James asked. How did they get here? Soo-yoon said calmly, it seems those people are not simple. They must have found another passage. Given the character of the ancient Egyptians, building a secret passage is quite normal. I just don't know if they got lucky or if they already knew about the secret passage. Everyone understood his meaning. If so, those people's identities were not simple. But there was no time to think too much now. Richard said nervously, everyone, grab your guns. Let's try to talk. The other side outnumbered them, and if possible, he really didn't want to fight them. Soo-yoon, holding a black umbrella and a pistol, quietly watched the other side. Boom. Another golden door swung open, revealing the scene outside, a group of men with headscarves and distinctive black clothing. As the light shone on them, the men on the other side noticed them and were immediately shocked. It's you, you're still alive. The tomb guardians were stunned. Sibino, at the back of the crowd, was also surprised and incredulous, demanding, you got through those traps? He was shocked. According to the records, the traps there were not small, but extremely dangerous. How could those people have gotten here unharmed? In his mind, they should all be dead. Even if they weren't, they had reached the Temple of the Sun faster than those who had used the secret passage. "Don't move," Richard shouted when he saw them making a move to draw their guns. "If you move again, we'll shoot." The men at the front stopped. As for those hiding in the blind spots at the back, they all drew their weapons. Richard didn't notice their subtle movements and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He inquired, "Who are you? How did you find this place?" The old man Juan, one of the tomb keepers, immediately sneered. "Who are we? Why don't you tell us who you damn tomb raiders are? You who offend the gods, you'll go to hell sooner or later." Richard and the others frowned. Suyun's eyes flickered. From the old man's words, he vaguely guessed something. He tentatively asked, "Are you the guardians of the pyramids?" A clear voice echoed in the darkness, surprising Richard and Sabino. A young man among the tomb keepers immediately opened his mouth instinctively. "How did you know, tomb keepers?" Richard and the others were astonished. Old man Juan glared at the young man, who awkwardly lowered his head, realizing he had misspoke. Now that these people knew, Sabino had no intention of hiding it any longer. He glanced at Suyun, whose face was obscured in the darkness, and said calmly, "Outsider, as you say, we are indeed the tomb keepers." Having received confirmation, Richard and the others' expressions changed, and they felt a little embarrassed. Like being caught stealing something by its owner, the feeling is complex and indescribable. Carlos said in a deep voice, "I think we can discuss this. There's no need for conflict. Everyone has guns. Fighting won't benefit anyone, don't you think?" Supino shook his head, a cold glint in his eyes. "Outsiders, I don't care how you got in. It's obvious you know the secret of the pyramids." He didn't finish his sentence, but his meaning was clear, and the atmosphere instantly became tense. Just as tensions were about to rise, the tomb guardians in front understood their leader's meaning and unconsciously took a few steps forward, their hearts filled with murderous intent. "Stop!" Carlos's expression changed, and he was about to shout. But at that moment, something unexpected happened. As the men in black took a few steps, they inevitably stepped on the palace's stone bricks. The bricks sank. Crack. The familiar sound of a mechanism being triggered echoed in everyone's ears. This sound immediately diverted everyone's attention, making them all alert. Boom. A violent sound reverberated throughout the entire palace. Then, a breathtaking scene unfolded. At the very front of the palace, a crack suddenly appeared in the high stone roof. Golden light, a brilliant golden beam, pierced straight down. What, my God! The beam struck a circular golden object, and then beams of golden light, like lightning, began to shoot out from every part of the palace. The stars on the rooftop also changed color, turning entirely golden, like tiny golden suns, dazzling and radiant. Carlos, Sabino, and the others only felt a flash before their eyes, and the entire dark palace was instantly illuminated by golden light, as bright as day, with not a trace of darkness remaining. Only then could they truly see what this place looked like. Gold, everything inside was gold. Whether it was the roof, the walls, or the floor, everything seemed to be made of gold. The golden sunlight shining down from above, reflected off the gold, made the entire palace constantly radiate golden light, resplendent and magnificent. What attracted their attention most was the spot where the beam of light shone from the very front of the palace. A colossal golden chair sat beneath, upon which a mysterious figure remained seated. A golden sphere, reflecting light, suspended above the figure. Bathed in golden light, the sphere seemed to transform into the sun, radiating brilliance in all directions. Dazzling and radiant. For a fleeting moment, the crowd seemed to see a majestic being with the sun atop his head. Chapter 330. A golden pillar of light piercing the sky. The being held a straight, golden gas scepter in its left hand and a symbol of life with a cross on its right. Its adornments and the life-giving falcon-headed human form were exquisitely sculpted. Its majestic eyes seemed to gaze directly at the crowd, instilling a sense of pressure. Ra! Suddenly, a cry of surprise rang out, successfully drawing everyone's attention back from their daze. The old man Juan, one of the tomb keepers, knelt down with a thud, devoutly worshipping the golden statue of Ra, occasionally muttering prayers. Since no one else was speaking, his voice was clearly heard by everyone. Homage to you, beautiful Ra, who rises every morning, while Hepburn wearies from labor. You shine your sunlight on people's faces, yet no one ever notices it. Even pure gold cannot match your radiance, all eyes can see through you, but when you descend, Great One, they will have accomplished nothing. You rise early each morning, full of vigor, your light opens awakening eyes, and when you sit in the west, they sleep peacefully. Homage to you, son of the day, you are the creator of all things, you are the source of life. Hearing the ancient prayers echoing in their ears, Carlos and his companions, as well as Cipino and the others, were somewhat speechless. After snapping out of their daze, Richard and his group became clear-headed. They secretly admired the lifelike golden statue. However, they felt no other piety whatsoever. It's just a statue. No matter how realistic it is, what difference does it make? Who knows, by some twist of fate, this statue might be taken out for people to admire. Where would the divine majesty be then? Chief Cipino completely disbelieved in God, and most of the tomb keepers didn't believe in the sun god either. Professor Luca was a staunch scientist, and Richard, of course, couldn't possibly believe in the so-called sun god. Yet, at this moment, his eyes gleamed as he looked at the sun god. Tam and the others were similar. After Professor Luca's previous education, they were no longer superstitious or afraid of gods. In their minds, once the superstitious aura surrounding gods was removed, they were just powerful beings. With modern technology and weaponry, there was no need to fear so-called gods. For example, a nuclear bomb could kill anyone, god or man. Holding this thought, they had little reverence for gods. However, while most people were dismissive, looking at Old One like a clown, there were a few exceptions. Several burly men among the dozens of tomb keepers knelt down shortly after Juan, chanting prayers in unison. Suyun, observing the effects of the mechanisms, was somewhat surprised. He truly hadn't expected the pyramid's mechanisms to be so ingeniously designed. If he wasn't mistaken, the golden sunbeams were condensed through the mechanisms at the pyramid's apex. The light not only appeared golden but also contained extraordinary heat, acting like a magnifying glass. The palace's light-reflecting design, in particular, created a magnificent, golden effect, making one feel as if they were in a celestial palace. The overall design was simply ingenious. Looking at the sun god statue, seemingly radiant with divine light, a plan formed in his mind, and he couldn't help but smile. Luckily, this saves me some trouble. He had been pondering how to come up with a plausible reason for his appearance, but now it was convenient. While he was thinking, the others around him weren't idle either. What a beautiful statue! How much is it worth? Kyle exclaimed in amazement, his gaze fixed on the golden objects. Yes, it's just like the real thing. Both the spirit and the level of carving are extraordinary, Sean agreed. And it wasn't just the statue, the towering golden throne and the rows of golden guardians flanking the palace made their hearts race. If they could just take any one of these, they'd be rolling in money, set for life. A national treasure. We should protect it, Professor Luca declared. While they were praising it, the tomb keepers, including Sabino, were filled with rage. Old One couldn't take it anymore and roared, "Shut up! You bastards, you insult God, aren't you afraid of going to hell?" Whether they sold it or protected it as a national treasure, it was an insult to God, and he would never allow it. Sabino, though a non-believer, wouldn't allow them to take the pyramid's secrets out of the country. He coldly shouted, "Kill them! The secret of the pyramids cannot be exposed." Carlos and the others were startled. The next moment, the other side fired first. The tomb guardians hidden behind them drew their guns and began firing. "Get out of the way," Richard cried out in alarm. Bang bang bang. A burst of gunfire drowned out his voice. Carlos and the others moved while also firing. As spent shell casings clattered to the ground, screams erupted from both sides, a scene of utter carnage. In a short while, people were falling to the ground, unable to get up. Due to the disparity in numbers, Carlos and the others immediately fell into a disadvantageous position. Of course, there was one exception. Suyun watched the bullets flying towards him. Each bullet pierced the air at incredible speed. But that was for everyone else. For him, it was surprisingly slow. With a slight narrowing of his eyes, the bullets seemed to slow down. Suyun casually held up his black umbrella to block the bullets. After a series of crisp impacts, all the bullets were stopped. Impossible. A burly man who had been specifically targeting him stared wide-eyed in disbelief. The others, who had been fighting, were gradually drawn to the scene. Suyun frowned slightly, used his black umbrella to deflect the attacks, and began his counterattack. Bang bang bang. With each gunshot, bullets flew out, accurately striking the guns in the hands of those who had been attacked. The tomb guardians groaned, their weapons falling to the ground. This astonishing scene instantly drew everyone's attention. even slowing the fighting. Looking at Suyun, everyone was first astonished by his good looks, then by his black umbrella and marksmanship. Where did this freak come from? Ryan, a tomb guardian whose pistol had been knocked out and whose wrist still ached, looked completely bewildered. The leader of the Supino clan frowned, seeing that the young man was distracted and hadn't noticed them, and fired a few shots at Suyun. Bang bang! Bullets flew out. Just when he thought he would hit, the boy, as if he had eyes in the back of his head, swung his umbrella behind him, deflecting the bullets to the ground. Sabino, skeptical, initially thought the boy was just lucky, and fired several more times after the boy removed his umbrella. But then, unexpectedly, the boy again blocked the bullets as if he had anticipated it. Who is he? Sabino's handsome face showed utter shock. As the boy held out longer, the situation gradually changed. More and more tomb keepers were drawn to him and began firing at him in unison. Suyun moved with ease, his movements swift and precise, his black umbrella at blur of motion, like a terrifying assassin, bullets flying from his hand, knocking away pistol after pistol. For a moment, it seemed he was holding them all off alone. The tomb keepers and Carlos's group were all bewildered. Where were we? Was this a movie set? As Sabino watched, a realization dawned on him. No wonder those traps couldn't stop them. With skills like that, what trap can't they get through? While understanding this, he was also filled with curiosity about the identity of this handsome young man. Suyun, while fighting, glanced at the others. 7 or 8 of the tomb guardians lay on the ground, blood flowing freely beneath them, their fates unknown. Tam and the others weren't faring much better. Despite drawing most of the enemy's attention, some were still injured or even dying. Carlos, Matt, and Richard, among others, had sustained minor bullet grazes. Kyle, Tam, and several burly bodyguards lay on the ground, clutching their wounds, their clothes soaked in blood, their breathing rapid and weak. A sudden, aged scream drew his attention. The old man who had initially knelt was now clutching his bleeding chest, his body limp, and he knelt again. Sabino, hiding behind cover, paled. Looking at the wound on one's chest, a bad premonition crept into his heart. Old man, Amy exclaimed. Chief, One opened his mouth to say something, but a surge of blood choked him. Coughing, he coughed up some blood, his mind blank as he stared at the radiant golden sun god. Even though he was about to die, he felt no fear. He was old, perhaps dying here was his good fortune. To die beside a god was far better than any death he had ever imagined. Struggling to speak, he said, Chief, I am going to serve the god. His gaze was fixed on the statue, and in his blurred vision, he seemed to see a majestic figure, the sun above his head, radiating golden light, walking towards him. As the divine figure drew closer, a smile unconsciously appeared on his face. Had the god come to take him away? How wonderful, maybe I can serve God. Sabino looked at Juan, who was gazing ahead and taking his last breath, his eyes reddening with sorrow. A series of angry shouts echoed among the tomb keepers, each staring intently at Carlos and his group. They killed Juan. Fight them, Amy roared. Die, bang bang bang. The screams intensified, hatred driving the tomb keepers to bloodthirsty frenzy. Carlos and the others inwardly cried out in alarm. People around them continued to fall, convulsing and struggling. Even Professor Luca, caught off guard, was shot several times and collapsed to the ground, barely alive. Suyun watched, then sighed softly. At this rate, both sides would suffer heavy casualties sooner or later. And since they were all somewhat related, it wouldn't be good for anyone to die, especially since deaths had already occurred. It was time to end this farce. He shook his head, deciding to intervene. The next second, a thought struck him, and he controlled the sunlight outside the pyramid. The blazing sun cast its rays upon the vicinity of the pyramids. At this moment, anyone outside would witness an incredible scene. Within a radius of tens of kilometers around the 200-meter-high giant pyramid, the light suddenly dimmed, as if a cloudy day had arrived. The temperature, which had resembled June weather, abruptly dropped, becoming much cooler. High in the distant sky, a dazzling golden light flashed, like a miniature sun. The next second, this miniature sun shot out a huge, straight golden beam, piercing through the clouds and striking something below. This massive commotion immediately attracted the attention of satellites and high-tech instruments in the high sky. What is this? Laboratory staff stared in astonishment at their computer screens, hearing the mechanical warnings. The enormous magnetic and energy field data displayed on the computers, in particular, filled them with dread, leaving them completely bewildered. Immediately, phone calls poured in, and the news spread rapidly. Some well-informed developed countries even redirected their satellites to Cairo, trying to see what had happened. Besides the high-ranking officials drawn by the enormous commotion, residents of Cairo in the distance also noticed the massive golden pillar of light. "My God, a miracle!" Expressions of utter astonishment appeared on the faces of tens of millions of Egyptians in Cairo. Their jaws nearly dropped. This scene, reminiscent of a movie, was almost unbelievable to them. Was it high-tech weaponry or a divine miracle? Doubts filled the hearts of millions in Cairo. The golden pillar of light pierced through the clouds and rapidly shot towards the pyramid's apex. Boom! In an instant, the pyramid standing tall in the yellow sand erupted with intense light, its apex even transforming into a giant sun under the golden beam. Just as described in ancient texts. The sky stretched its light towards you, as if pulling on your eyes. The entire pyramid seemed to be draped in golden light, with a sun hanging overhead. This sudden burst of light even directly disrupted some of the pyramid's hidden features, exposing it to satellites high in the sky. "This is the pyramid, my God, what's happening?" Exclamations of surprise erupted from those who witnessed this scene. Suyun controlled the sunlight, gathering it and removing most of the heat before directing it to the top of the pyramid. After an unknown process, golden light shone into the pyramid through a mechanism. Inside the Temple of the Sun, intense golden light flashed. Thank you 2020110115500388 feet for the 100 Kidian coins donation. Thank you for the 200 Kidian coins donation. Thank you for the 200 Kidian coins donation. Thank you for the 100 Kidian coins donation. Thank you for the 100 Kidian coins donation. Thank you for the 100 Kidian coins donation. Thank you Vikiayu for the 100 Kidian coins donation. Thank you for the 100 Kidian coins donation. Chapter 331 God of Ra. Richard and the others, who were engaged in battle, only saw the golden pillar of light that had been shooting down from the temple roof suddenly become even more dazzling. When the incomparably bright golden pillar struck the sun plate, an intense golden light flashed instantly, filling the entire Temple of the Sun with golden light. The blinding golden light stung everyone's eyes, and they involuntarily closed them. What happened? Emma was filled with shock. What's going on? Supino covered his eyes. They were astonished and did not understand what had happened. After the golden light filled the entire temple and deliberately shone on the camera, Suyun had an idea. A divine body radiating the light of the sun floated out from his physical body and instantly appeared under the golden statue of the sun god. Looking at the sun god sitting on the huge golden throne, he smiled slightly. "I'll borrow your appearance for a moment." As he spoke, the appearance of the divine body began to change, and he used his divine power to temporarily transform his appearance. This was a tall figure with no upper body, wearing a golden short skirt and bare feet. Especially the head, where brilliant golden feathers enveloped the eagle's head, exuding a majestic and solemn aura. After the transformation was complete, Suyun stroked the golden statue, and the statue disappeared from the throne. Luckily, it wasn't connected, otherwise I would have had to spend a lot of effort. Thinking this, he reached for another object, a sun disk reflecting golden light. He paused slightly as he took it down. After a moment's thought, he controlled a divine power within his body, converging it towards the top of his head, and a sun disk radiating golden light was condensed and hung above his head. After doing all this, he smiled and was about to take the sun disk away. However, after touching the sun disk for a while, he suddenly noticed something was wrong. This thing seemed to have been filled with a large amount of faith power, and its material itself was somewhat different. There was even a trace of faith power remaining within it. However, the amount of faith power contained was really small, incomparable to the Ark of the Covenant, and he almost overlooked it. After observing it, he felt a pang of regret. With a massive amount of faith power, this thing might have become a divine artifact. Ultimately, it was just a mortal object. Perhaps it had once accumulated a great deal of faith power, but that power couldn't withstand the passage of time. Even if the dissipation of faith power was slow, it would be good if some were preserved over thousands of years. Of course, most importantly, the ancient Egyptian pantheon was no longer mainstream. Few people were willing to believe in it. Furthermore, faith, lacking a primary focus, was fragmented, naturally resulting in insufficient faith power. However, The material of this object, after being eroded by faith power for a long time, had already laid the foundation for transformation into a divine artifact. With the addition of a certain amount of faith power and divine power, it might very well become a divine artifact. Thinking of this, he felt a slight surge of joy. However, now was not the time for research, so he quickly put away the sun disk instantly. The light in the palace dimmed slightly, but returned to normal the next second. A sun disk that truly emitted golden light autonomously replaced the previous one. Suyun clenched his left hand, and a straight, golden scepter appeared in his grasp. He sat down, leaning back in his divine chair. Once the preparations were complete, the light emanating from the sun disk above his head, along with a golden pillar, dimmed. The whole process happened in the blink of an eye, lasting only a few seconds. As the light faded, the crowd, who had been blinded by the golden light, could finally open their eyes. Suppressing the glare, they looked towards the source of the light, wanting to see what had happened. Then, they froze. Where the light had been emanating, more than one thing was now glowing. The golden statue was also radiating light. Wait! Just as they thought this, everyone noticed something was wrong. How had the golden statue changed? Although enveloped in light, they could still clearly see that there seemed to be a person within the light. How is this possible? They were about to scoff, but their smiles quickly froze. The light continued to dim, almost returning to its pre-anomaly state, but now they could no longer laugh. The figure within the light was so clear that they couldn't even deceive themselves. This is definitely a person. No, or rather, looking at the radiant figure, the vaguely revealed body, the eagle-like head, everyone's minds went blank. A pair of majestic eyes swept over them at that moment, causing them to tremble involuntarily. It was as if inferior beings were facing superior beings, as if they were ants facing the heavens. This was the essential difference between mortals and gods. The sun god, Emma screamed incredulously. The dying Professor Luca's eyes widened suddenly, staring straight at the sun god, his eyes filled with confusion. An illusion, this is an illusion, he muttered to himself, feeling a crack appear in his worldview. Richard and the others beside him also trembled, their faces filled with horror, unable to believe their eyes. The tomb keepers were no better off. God Ra, Sibino exclaimed in shock. Amy's mouth dropped open. The other tomb keepers' hearts pounded. Shocked, a strange sense of unease gripped them, preventing them from looking in the direction of the sun god. A few, however, recovered and cried out in delight, God, the great Ra. They knelt on the ground, devoutly chanting praises. The others were filled with complex emotions, utterly shocked. Some were even so shocked that they doubted whether the scene before them was real, that gods truly existed. Just as their resolve wavered, a terrifying divine power emanated from Ra, seated on his throne. Under this pressure, they felt as if they were facing the heavens and earth, utterly powerless. Everyone's legs buckled, and under the pressure and fear, they knelt down with thuds. Even Suyun himself knelt. Now, no one doubted whether it was an illusion. This was very likely a god, the Sun Ra recorded in ancient books. Was this a god? Just as they were in a daze, they heard the divine figure sitting on the throne speak slowly in an ancient and unfamiliar tone. Mortals, you have disturbed me. Although it was a language they couldn't understand, everyone inexplicably understood the meaning. Disturbed him? Richard and Carlos exchanged glances, a sense of fear creeping into their hearts. Only when truly facing a god did they realize how ridiculous their previous fearlessness had been. Now, looking back, they realized that their reliance on the fact that the god wouldn't reveal himself was all they had. Now, even if the opponent was, as Professor Luca had said, just a stronger being, he was still beyond their capabilities. This terrifying aura was simply impossible for humans to resist. Sipino felt his heart wavering. He breathed heavily, trying his best to adopt a pious posture. After kneeling in reverence, he said in the most devout tone possible, "Revered eternal God, please forgive our offense. We had to disturb you to stop these people." As he spoke, he pointed at Carlos and the others, defying the oppressive aura. Emma and the others were shocked, their faces turning deathly pale. Richard stammered, No, please listen to us, it's a misunderstanding, we just wanted to check this place, we absolutely didn't mean to offend you." Carlos quickly chimed in, "That's right, you must believe us." No. Supino was furious, about to rebuke them. But before he could finish, he was interrupted by the voice of the sun god. A majestic voice said, "I didn't expect there to be a devout believer among you." The devout believers were taken aback, exchanging glances. Sipino suppressed his urge to retaliate against Carlos and the others, and immediately turned to look behind him. A devout believer among the tomb keepers, he was somewhat surprised, wondering which person Ra had chosen so highly. He didn't think anyone opposite him believed in Ra, so it must be one of their own. He searched for a long time but couldn't find who it was, because none of them seemed to fit Ra's description of a devout believer. Until the majestic voice accurately told them who it was, they were stunned. Everyone looked at the old man Juan, who had already breathed his last, and their faces darkened. Juan is dead, Sipino said sadly. The other tomb keepers were also filled with regret. To be chosen by the gods was such a great opportunity, but alas, he was already dead. The dead cannot be brought back to life, what use was the gods' praise? Just as everyone was thinking this, they heard a mysterious voice say, "Return, you who should not have died." These words startled everyone who heard them, causing them to gasp and a bizarre thought to pop into their minds. Just as they thought this, golden light instantly filled the entire temple of the sun. Suyun cast a golden healing spell on Juan and then withdrew the golden light. The golden light flashed for 2 or 3 seconds, and Sipino and the others reopened their eyes. At the same time, the bizarre thought in their minds made them look towards Juan, and to their astonishment, they were stunned. The old man, who had been lifeless and pale, now had a rosy complexion. Even then, someone in the crowd exclaimed, "He moved." Everyone was shocked and stared intently at Juan, trying to see if he really moved. Juan, smiling, fell into darkness. He felt like he was having a long dream, a dream where a god came to take him away. In the dream, he suddenly felt a pang of fear and woke up with a start. Old Juan shuddered, cried out, opened his eyes, and gasped for breath. "What happened to me?" he murmured in confusion. Looking around in bewilderment, he saw everyone staring intently at him, which really startled him and almost made him faint. However, when his gaze fell on Suyun, who was radiating golden light, he was speechless. "Ra God, I saw Ra God. Ra God really came to take me away," he murmured in shock, his heart filled with joy. Suddenly, a terrified scream interrupted his thoughts. "You've been resurrected." He turned his head and saw Amy looking at him with some fear, as if she had seen some monster. Old Juan was puzzled, not understanding his meaning. He said, "Why are you all here to see Ra? Are you all dead too?" The crowd snapped out of their daze and immediately cried out in surprise. "The dead have risen." "My God!" Professor Luca's pale face flushed red with fright. "Who can tell me this isn't real? A miracle," Carlos murmured. Amidst the exclamations, Juan also sensed something was wrong. "What's going on?" he asked, puzzled. Sipino quickly explained, "You were." After learning the whole story, Old Juan immediately pinched himself. Only when the sharp pain returned did he realize that this wasn't a dream. God, the great Ra had resurrected him. God, Juan devoutly worshipped the sun god. Suyun ignored their shock and spoke in a deep, authoritative voice. "Those who love me will receive my mercy, those who understand me will receive my true teachings, those who hate me will receive my appreciation, those who believe in me will receive my protection." A majestic and mysterious voice echoed within the Temple of the Sun, sending a shiver down the spine of everyone who heard it. The crowd was momentarily stunned, but quickly grasped the meaning of the words, staring in shock at the sun god. At that moment, a weak groan rang out. "Great Ra, save me!" A tomb guardian, his black robes stained crimson with blood, lay on the ground, barely breathing. His face was filled with pleading, tears streaming down his face, begging for Ra's mercy. The majestic eyes looked over, causing the guardian to tremble. The others dared not even breathe. Since one's resurrection, they had already begun to grasp the power of the gods, and they dared not be presumptuous again. The black-clad tomb keeper, Max, continued, "From this day forward, I will offer sacrifices daily. Ra, please save me." Hearing his words, the crowd trembled with fear, cautiously looking up at the sun god. A few seconds later, seeing no response from the god, they were filled with bewilderment and despair. "Did I do something wrong? Is this the consequence of betraying one's faith?" Max gave a bitter laugh, his face filled with regret. If he could have another chance. He felt no resentment, only resignation as he closed his eyes. "No one is to blame but myself." Hearing his voice, everyone felt a pang of sadness. The glimmer of light in the eyes of those awaiting death dimmed, replaced by despair. Yes, who could they blame? They had betrayed their faith. What right did they have to plead for divine redemption? Max closed his eyes in despair. However, just as everyone was filled with complex emotions, believing that Ra wouldn't save those who weren't even believers. Seated on his throne, the god Ra, radiating golden light, suddenly shone brightly, thanks to short-tailed fox for the 688 book coins reward. Thanks to floating life for the 200 book coins. Chapter 332 The crowd licking the sun god. A thick, rich golden light emanated from Su Yun's feet, rapidly spreading outwards like a thick golden carpet. The golden ground reflected the light, shimmering and dazzling, creating a breathtakingly beautiful scene. As everyone stood there stunned, the thick golden light swept over them. They felt neither discomfort nor comfort, and just as they were wondering what was happening, the tomb keeper Max exclaimed in surprise, my wounds, enveloped in the golden carpet. Max's wounds were healing at a visible speed. Clang, clang, the bullets were expelled. His pale, lifeless face instantly transformed into a rosy, glowing complexion. In less than a second or two, he had gone from being critically wounded and on the verge of death to being completely healed, leaving those around him dumbfounded and astonished. In the end, Max even jumped up, excitedly touching his body. After a long while, he knelt down again and devoutly said to Ra, thank you, Ra. I will absolutely keep my promise. Compared to the great Ra, what was Allah compared to him? He had already decided that he would worship Ra every day from now on. In his moments of waiting to die, Ra was like a ray of hope, illuminating and saving his body and soul, gradually making him devout. The other wounded and dying people all looked at the sun god with envy and longing. Professor Luca looked at the inhuman scenes before his eyes, feeling a bitter taste in his mouth. So the science I pursued and believed in was so ridiculous. This is the god with amazing power in the legends. Although the sun god Ra had not yet unleashed his amazing power, even the few glimpses of his magical power were already astonishing enough, worthy of the name of a god. As he thought about it, a tear rolled down his cheek. He felt that his life's persistence had been meaningless and foolish. Moreover, his injuries were a constant reminder that if he did not receive treatment sooner or later, he would bleed to death and fall into shock. But here, there's no advanced medical equipment at all. He can't get any treatment, except. Looking at Ra, the sun god, a struggle appeared on his face, his mind torn between conflicting thoughts. No, gods are just stronger beings. I can't, you can. What's wrong with believing in a god to live? Haven't you seen his divine power? Still clinging to that ridiculous materialism, he's the king of gods in mythology. It's your honor to believe in him. Professor Luca's face contorted in pain, as if he were schizophrenic. Believing in a god clashed with his long-held beliefs, but not believing meant death. While he struggled, the others were different, less steadfast. Having witnessed a miraculous healing of Max's wounds, they had already betrayed their conscience. It's just a matter of integrity. What's wrong with selling one's life for it? Ra, I'm willing to offer daily sacrifices, a burly, bearded man in his 30s shouted in a rough voice. I am willing to, God have mercy, I swear. The 6 tomb guardians lying on the ground, along with some others who had been shot but not seriously, instantly switched sides. Pleas for help and oaths of curses poured from their mouths. The sun god Ra was their natural faith, so switching wouldn't put much psychological pressure on them. In fact, they felt a sense of relief, their guilt lessened. Sibino, watching from the sidelines, was dumbfounded, feeling like he was seeing them for the first time. But what numbed him even more was that the moment they finished speaking, their wounds rapidly healed under the still present golden light. This is possible, Sibino murmured in disbelief. The tomb guardians were overjoyed. Seeing this, the old man Juan solemnly warned, deceiving the gods will not end well. If you can't do it, you will be cursed. A chill ran through the group, any remaining hope vanished instantly. No one knew what power the gods possessed, and if they failed to keep their word, the consequences could be dire. Perhaps this was why the sun god so readily agreed to heal their injuries. Understanding this, they immediately began reverently chanting praises to Ra. We salute you, you are the king of gods, the lord of the sky, the creator of mankind, the creator of the gods, the one who makes radiance shine daily. The expressions of Carlos's group shifted. Looking at the tomb keeper's sycophantic behavior, they felt ashamed. Damn it, as expected of the tomb keepers, they're so skilled at flattery, Richard muttered, filled with contempt. The others shared similar thoughts, disdainful of the tomb keeper's sycophantic behavior, considering them a bunch of obsequious sycophants. Until Tam, lying on the ground, couldn't hold back any longer and shouted, Invincible Ra, I also wish to believe in you, and will offer daily sacrifices." As soon as he finished speaking, his injuries healed rapidly under the healing touch of the golden carpet. Overjoyed, he grinned, gazing at the sun god with adoration. Richard and the others were stunned. Traitor, Carlos and the others silently cursed in their hearts. Then the next second, "Great sun god Ra, I am willing to follow," Emma murmured. Matt piously said, "I am willing to kneel before you, to serve you day and night, Ra. I do not wish to be a sinful faithless person. Please be the home of my soul, great Ra." Richard's old face flushed red. Carlos and the others were horrified at the sight and quickly followed suit, shouting. Each one of them was more obsequious than the last, so nauseating it gave one goosebumps. The tomb keeper opposite was dumbfounded, unable to believe that such people existed in the world. Listen to those words. How could they utter such utterances? Truly, they are nothing but petty thieves. Amidst their disdain, deep down they felt envy, jealousy, and hatred, thinking to themselves, "Looks like I need to read more books when I get back, so I won't be inferior to anyone when I see Ra next time." Suyun, sitting higher on his throne, couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth hidden in golden light. He definitely had goosebumps. There's always someone better. He was starting to admire Richard and his ilk. Suppressing the tingling sensation on his scalp, he channeled his healing golden light to heal them. Soon, exclamations of amazement filled the air. Professor Luca, hearing the sounds around him and seeing that everyone except him had been healed, felt his resolve shift. His old face flushed, and he said in a weak voice, "I, too, am willing to entrust my faith to Ra." Although his voice was weak, as if he were embarrassed to say it, a man like him either didn't believe or, once he did, he wouldn't regret it. Suyun glanced at Professor Luca with some surprise. He hadn't expected this stubborn, scientifically minded old man to succumb. Professor Luca, noticing the divine gaze, was immediately startled and at a loss for what to do. He wondered why Ra was staring at him so intently. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 333 Miracle. However, the comfortable feeling that followed quickly made him lose his composure, almost causing him to groan. Suyun spread the healing golden light throughout the entire Temple of the Sun. He glanced at the still working cameras, a slight smile playing on his lips. Since everyone's already licked it, might as well heal everyone. The golden light spread towards everyone. Some people couldn't help but groan, then instantly shut their mouths, their faces turning bright red. A scarred, bearded tomb guardian suddenly felt an itch on his face. He scratched his face with his rough, dark hands, then paused, stunned to discover something. After touching it again and again, confirming it several times, he was shocked and exclaimed, "My scar is gone." Hearing his exclamation, everyone who had just recovered from the comfort immediately turned to look. "Scarface, your face is healed." The black-clad tomb guardian next to him was astonished by his appearance. Sapino, watching, suddenly had an unbelievable thought and quickly pulled open his clothes to look. "My scars have disappeared too." Their words immediately alerted the others, and soon everyone noticed the shocking fact. Not only had their wounds disappeared, but scars and hidden injuries were also gone, and they were full of energy. Suyun sat on his throne watching, unsurprised. With his healing arts, they had not only healed their injuries, but all their internal organs had also returned to their theoretical peak. It was theoretical because as long as a person is alive, various external factors affect their lifespan. Eating, staying up late, even breathing air can erode the body. There's also the surrounding magnetic field, etc. Thus, a person is constantly being damaged, and their lifespan is significantly reduced. This is the main reason why some people live long lives and others short lives. If everyone's body were undamaged and always at its peak, living to 100 years old would be easy, theoretically reaching the limit of human lifespan. He had just used his healing arts on them, adding at least 10 years to their lifespan. As Suyun thought about this, he suddenly remembered the dead bodyguard, Jis. "Since everyone has a share, let's try to save you before you die." A rich, soft golden light surged forth like a tidal wave, illuminating the darkness. Ra's action stunned everyone, who didn't know what the god was doing. Only Professor Luca was quick-witted. He immediately realized something and gasped. Is Ra going to resurrect Jis?" Upon hearing this, Richard and the others instantly understood. "Jis, could it be that dead man?" Supino asked. The tomb keepers around him immediately realized something. During their search of the secret passage, they had naturally discovered the corpse. Ra was actually resurrecting the dead again. Gasps of astonishment rang out repeatedly. Suyun ignored them, his attention shifting with a healing golden light to the sealed stone door. Looking at the somewhat obstructive stone door, he didn't even frown. The golden light instantly pierced through it, as if it were nothing, without the slightest hindrance. Even the divine power of other gods couldn't stop the healing light from penetrating, let alone these ordinary stones. The golden light swept across the corridor, then quickly reached the hall filled with gold, surging towards the corpse in the corner. As the golden light healed Jis, Suyun's attention shifted to his body. Since noticing souls in the other world, he hadn't seen any in the real world, so this was a good opportunity to see what was going on. He only glanced at the body before abandoning the other parts and focusing his attention on the brain. Suyun discovered that the guy's brain cells were dying off in large numbers, and at the core of the brain, he noticed some fluctuations. A peculiar, almost imperceptible fluctuation, carrying the characteristics of a soul. These fluctuations were gradually dissipating as the brain cells died. Suyun pondered. Through comparison, he quickly understood the difference between the other world and the real world. The real world might lack rules, or something else, and hadn't formed a soul at all. Rather, this imperceptible fluctuation was somewhat like the nascent form of a soul. Suyun's discovery of this situation wasn't necessarily without its advantages. At least the soul wouldn't immediately leave the body, and with timely treatment, it could still be saved. For example, at this moment, with a healing spell's effect, Jis's brain cells began to recover rapidly, and the fluctuations resembling a soul stopped dissipating. The other damaged parts of his body also recovered under the powerful life force of the healing spell, and his bodily functions were reawakened. As for the remaining toxins, with the support of astonishing life force, they were quickly decomposed and expelled from his body, though it took a little longer. At this moment, Jis, lying on the ground, as if having a nightmare, gasped for breath a few times before opening his eyes in terror. Seeing the golden light surrounding his body, he screamed in alarm. After observing, Suyun was about to withdraw the healing spell. However, he suddenly noticed something that even stunned him. In the golden-lit corridor, the brown, desiccated corpses holding weapons, as if guarding something, were undergoing a strange transformation. No way, this time, Suyun couldn't help but be surprised. The mummies, dead for thousands of years, were undergoing a massive influx of life force, causing their dead cells to revive and multiply. Several question marks appeared on Suyun's forehead. Tiny new buds of flesh appeared, seemingly indicating that if this continued, the corpses could be perfectly resurrected. Healing techniques have reached this level, Suyun mused to himself. With advancement, healing techniques that couldn't previously regenerate severed limbs could now achieve this at level 5. Seeing the 1,000-year-old corpses about to revive, Suyun hesitated. Isn't this a bad idea? The resurrection of corpses that have been dead for so long will cause a huge sensation, Suyun thought. Wasn't this the pursuit of the ancient Egyptians, preserving the body, waiting for a day of resurrection? Of course, while he thought this, Suyun still noticed some problems in an instant. He had a strong premonition that resurrection was highly likely to be possible. He had discovered this after reviving Jis. In the real world, it was easy to resurrect a person. Unlike the other world, which had some kind of rule restricting such a heaven-defying event as the resurrection of the dead, the real world lacks such a rule. However, unlike Jis, it's uncertain whether these 1,000-year-old corpses, after being resurrected, will still be the same people they were before. Their soul fluctuations have definitely dissipated. And after resurrection, they'll likely be like clones, with their consciousness possibly replaced. This can't really be considered a true resurrection. So Suyun hesitated, unsure whether to go through with this unnecessary trouble. But it was this hesitation that led to something he somewhat regretted. Chapter 334 The Resurrection of a 1,000-year-old Corpse. As time passed, astonishing changes occurred in the scene. Meow, a black cat, shook itself from the uneven stone wall and leaped lightly to the ground. It looked around, seemingly puzzled. Moreover, as the black cat regained its life, the flesh and blood of the desiccated guards almost completely returned to normal. One by one, strong, brown-skinned men appeared in the passageway. Thump thump, the sound of heartbeats filled the air. One after another, Bewildered eyes opened. From their eyes, it was clear they were confused about what had happened. Seeing the golden light surrounding them filled them with both fear and excitement. They were both terrified and excited, a guess forming in their minds. This was a divine intervention. Meow! Suddenly, the black cat leaped up and landed on one of the men's heads. A tall male guard, after adjusting to the golden light, hesitated for a moment before opening his mouth. Should we be dead, ancient? Unfamiliar words escaped his lips. This is the underworld, another guard asked, puzzled. They chattered amongst themselves, quickly realizing the place was somewhat familiar. Seemingly inside the Pyramid of the Sun as guards who had been buried alive, they were quite familiar with this place. Soon, they actually still retained some memories, he thought with some surprise. He wasn't sure how much these people remembered, but at least some memories were certain. Could it be that their brains weren't removed, which is why they were able to recover their memories? Su-Yun pondered. He had thought these people would awaken in a blank, infantile state, but he hadn't expected this to happen. It seemed he had underestimated healing magic. But if that's the case, then it's even more difficult to handle, Su-Yun thought with some distress. He already foresaw the reaction of modern people when they discovered that these 1,000-year-old corpses had been resurrected and possessed some, or even complete, memories. Cough cough. It wasn't me, I don't know anything. Su-Yun quickly distanced himself from the situation and hastily withdrew the golden light of the healing magic. The guards, watching the golden light fade and their surroundings darken, were filled with terror, wondering if they had done something wrong and the gods had withdrawn the light. Fortunately, their captain, who knew the area better, managed to find a spot and quickly activated a mechanism. A few clicks and clacks filled the air as the mechanism moved. Boom, boom, boom. 2 stone doors began to descend, revealing the exit that had been blocked by the stone doors. Seeing this, only now did they believe that this was not the underworld. Another chilling thought also surfaced in their minds: they had been resurrected. Which god had saved them? The gods of the underworld and death filled them with speculation and awe. Su-Yun, of course, also noticed them opening the door, his lips twitching slightly. Pretending not to see them, he looked at the kneeling crowd, their faces filled with astonishment. He offered no explanation, but instead asked another question with an air of authority. The crowd, who had been speculating whether the sun god had gone to resurrect geese, suddenly heard a terrifying question. Who rules Egypt now? Silence fell over the palace. Everyone's expression froze, their hearts churning. If the sun god knew that the ancient Egyptian dynasties had long since perished, and even the pantheon of faith had withered away, they suddenly felt a sense of dread. They had just witnessed some of the sun god's power, and no one knew just how strong he was. Although their reason and long-held understanding told them that such a powerful being couldn't possibly exist, he was still a god, after all, and couldn't be weak. Even if the ancients were ignorant and exaggerated, perhaps, as Professor Luca said, the sun god was a relatively strong being, but if he was said to be relatively strong, then clearly, the power of a god was not something ordinary people could handle. Just as they were thinking of how to phrase things without angering the sun god's voice unexpectedly continued. So it's perished. The sun god's voice carried a hint of joy and anger, but the words he spoke shocked everyone, their faces turning pale. Ra knows, along with their fear, this scene with the sun god led them to speculate wildly. Previously, the sun god seemed unaware of the fall of ancient Egypt. How could he have learned so much in such a short time? A guess unconsciously popped into his mind. Legend says God is omniscient. Could this sun god also be omniscient? Old One hesitated for a moment before saying, Ra, the Egyptian dynasty disappeared thousands of years ago? HMPH, a cold snort rang out. Sabino and the others trembled, sensing something was wrong. Everyone could hear the sun god's displeasure. Old One, sensing the sun god's displeasure, feared he might suffer at the hands of humans, and quickly and cautiously reminded him, Ra, thousands of years have passed. Things are different now. We humans have powerful weapons with terrifying power. Although he spoke carefully, those around him understood his meaning. Powerful weapons, weren't they things like nuclear bombs? While they were proud, they also felt some worry. They worried about the sun god's attitude towards humanity, about the sun god suffering at the hands of human weapons, and even, after all, Ra was a god they had just begun to worship. They felt it necessary to dissuade Ra from directly clashing with humanity. Just as they finished thinking and someone was about to speak up to dissuade them, Ra on the throne let out another cold snort, and in an instant, The throne shone brightly. A blinding golden light filled the entire temple of the sun. When the light dimmed and everyone opened their eyes again, they were shocked to see that Ra on the throne had vanished. They were initially panicked and confused, then Professor Luca in the crowd hesitated and said, "Has Ra gone to Cairo?" His words immediately made some people pale, a bad premonition creeping over them. "Quick, we must stop Ra," one shouted anxiously. Sabino also realized something and immediately yelled, "Go!" With a flurry of footsteps, they ran towards the secret passage. Richard and the others looked at them, exchanged glances, and then also ran towards the secret passage in unison. After all, Ra had saved their lives, so they felt it necessary to persuade him. Times had changed. What if Ra were really injured by human weapons? Chapter 335 The Angry God. The tomb keepers, including Sabino, naturally noticed them, but after a moment's hesitation, they chose to ignore them, letting them follow behind. After Ra healed the tomb keepers, their biggest conflict had disappeared. Now, being followers of Ra, they dared not act rashly without divine permission. While they were hurrying along, a drama was unfolding inside the golden palace of the pyramid. Jis, still shaken from his resurrection, looked at the gold with dread, no longer daring to touch it. Where did Carlos and the others go, he wondered. Could they have abandoned me because I was poisoned? Jis hadn't realized he was dead, only believing he had been poisoned and unconscious, abandoned by his companions. Thinking this, he was furious. Looking at the passage, he was about to run in to find Carlos and the others, but a secret passage in another corner of the palace puzzled him. Where did this come from? Which one did they go into? He hesitated. Just as he hesitated, a series of footsteps sounded, as if many people were coming out. Jis's eyes lit up, immediately assuming it was Carlos and his group. He angrily shouted, "Fine, you left me here alone while you went in to search for treasure? This isn't over." The footsteps seemed to pause for a moment, then quickened, running towards him. Jis, oblivious to anything amiss, was about to storm into the corridor when the source of the footsteps arrived before him. Looking at them, he was about to say something, but his voice trailed off, like a duck being strangled, unable to utter another sound. In the firelight illuminating the walls of the golden palace, he saw something. He saw a squad of barefoot soldiers clad in ancient armor, wielding black scimitars and spears. "Who are you? Where are Carlos and the others?" Jis's eyes widened in fear. Just as he thought this, he felt something was off. These people were strange, giving him an odd feeling, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. "Intruder! Seize him!" Captain Dill shouted. Their aura intensified, each of them glaring at Jis with hostility. Jis, bewildered by the strange words around him, had no idea what they were saying. Although he couldn't understand their language, he could tell from their expressions that they were definitely enemies. What era are we living in? Still using knives, Jis showed no fear, even smiling as they charged, feeling it was time to show off his skills. Just as they were about to reach him, he sneered, "Let me show you my marksmanship, Lord Jis." With a laugh, he quickly reached for his right hip. Look up, he felt around, but couldn't find his gun. However, he didn't panic. The gun must be on the other side. He reached for his left hip. The gun. Instantly, he looked blankly, backing away while looking down at his body. Gone. He had no idea that with his death, his belongings had been taken, including his gun. Looking at the approaching soldiers, Jis turned pale, almost wetting himself in fear. "My God, don't come any closer," he shouted as he retreated. After several screams, he experienced the beating of the old era. Although he was skilled, without his gun, he was no match for these carefully selected warriors and was captured without fail. He was now pinned to the ground, several large brown feet pressing firmly on his chest, a sharp black spear pointed at his face, rendering him unable to move. He listened to the birdsong above him with a sense of utter despair. Who is this person? His clothes are strange, Captain Dill wondered. I don't know, maybe some kind of foreign native, another young guard, Renibo, guessed. Should we kill him? Someone asked hesitantly. Those who offend God deserve to die, came the firm statement. Okay, Jis, completely unaware that he had been sentenced to death, was now scrutinizing them, growing increasingly horrified with each look. The clothes these people wore were so ancient, and their brown skin and features were distinct from modern people. As he watched, an unbelievable thought popped into his head. Could it be? These are surviving ancient Egyptians, he wondered incredulously. But what about the things on their bodies? It can't be, are they mummies who have come back to life? He scoffed. A scene from a movie couldn't possibly happen, he thought he was just imagining things. However, before he could think any further, the raised spear made his jaw drop, and he cried out in panic, "Don't kill me. Don't do it. Let's talk this out." Although they couldn't understand Jiss's words, they knew from his expression that he was pleading for mercy. However, the guards, including Dill, remained unmoved, their cold expressions unchanged. Just a mere native from another tribe. But it seemed Jiss's fate was not to die. Just as he raised the spear to stab, a commotion of footsteps made him stop. Who? Another one who offends the gods? They immediately looked over warily. A short while later, a group of burly men dressed in black ran out. The moment they saw them, Sibino and the others' expressions changed, and they instantly raised their guns. "Who are you?" Sibino looked at them, his expression filled with suspicion. "Hey, buddy, help." Guise's eyes lit up. Hearing this, Sibino and the others finally noticed the unfortunate guy being trampled under their feet. After recognizing who it was, shock appeared on their faces. Not one of them didn't recognize Guise. Even if they didn't know his name, they would remember his face even if they were ashes. They had clearly seen this guy lying on the ground, his face covered in bruises, seemingly dead for who knows how long, and now he was alive and kicking. If it weren't for their previous experience, some of them would have been terrified the moment they saw him. "You really were resurrected by Ra, Ra," Old One exclaimed, his beard bristling and his eyes wide, waving his hands wildly. The others were similarly stunned, now only filled with amazement and worship of the sun god's power. Resurrected, Guise looked completely bewildered. The captain of the Dill guards frowned, and seeing that these people seemed to be in cahoots, a murderous glint flashed in his eyes. He raised his scimitar and, to everyone's surprise, swung it at Jis. Jis was terrified. Time seemed to freeze at that moment, until a gunshot rang out. Bang! Clang! The black scimitar was struck precisely by the bullet. Captain Dill's expression changed, the scimitar was almost knocked away by the immense force. What was that? The others' expressions also changed, looking towards the source of the gunfire. A delicate and handsome young man had silently appeared behind the tomb keeper. At that moment, footsteps echoed from behind the secret passage. "Thank you Dr. GUI for the 200 Kidian coins donation. Thank you Zhuangyan for the 100 Kidian coins donation." Chapter 336 The world is shocked. "It's you?" Supino's expression shifted, he hadn't even noticed when this person had appeared. Jis, having escaped unscathed, looked at Suyun with relief and delight. The guards at Dill were momentarily stunned by the boy's appearance. Suyun's current appearance was the kind that any race would find beautiful, including these ancient Egyptians. After a few seconds of stunned silence, Dill finally focused his attention on what the boy was holding and demanded, "Foreigner, what is that?" Supino and the others frowned upon hearing this. What was this person talking about? Just then, Carlos and his group ran out. Emerging from the secret passage, they were shocked by the scene. Who were those people in armor? Wait, they seemed familiar. They look a bit like those sacrificial victims, Emma asked weakly. Professor Luca and the others froze. Upon closer inspection, they were right, just as Emma had said. Looking at their appearance and connecting the dots, it wasn't just a resemblance, but a high probability that it was true. Juan and the others' expressions shifted, their faces showing astonishment and doubt. Their weapons, and their skin that's different from ours. Carlos uttered a horrifying guess. Could they have been resurrected by the sun god? My god, Richard thought for a moment, then murmured in agreement, although it's incredible, I have to say, perhaps we've witnessed a miracle. Resurrected? Sibino frowned. You mean they were the dead in the pyramids, casually resurrected by the sun god? Hearing this guess, both the other tomb keepers and the devout one were filled with disbelief. That's right, we saw it with our own eyes. These people were facing corpses. Carlos nodded. No way, how is that possible? This is the power of God. The tomb keepers gasped, their faces filled with shock. Although no one said it aloud, everyone knew that resurrecting someone who had only recently died and whose body hadn't yet decomposed was worlds apart from resurrecting someone who had died thousands of times. It was on a completely different level. The difficulty had increased immeasurably. They had tried their best to imagine the power of the sun god, but they had still underestimated him far too much. Was this the special power of a god, the authority of God? For the first time, everyone felt a gap between gods and mortals. A miracle. Old One's eyes were filled with fanaticism. Hey, guys, What were you just talking about? Guise looked at the large brown foot stepping on him, his face paling. Damn it, could it be? He was actually right? His expression was somewhat terrified. These guys were mummies resurrected? Professor Luca and the others then noticed Guise. Having seen the precedent of resurrecting a 1,000-year-old corpse, they quickly adapted, and at the same time, they were happy for his resurrection. However, while they were whispering amongst themselves, the guards, including Dill, grew increasingly impatient, their eyes gradually filled with anger. These foreign natives dare to ignore them, Dill roared, kill these foreign natives. A series of angry roars followed. Sabino and the others' expressions changed, their hands tightening around their guns. Don't attack, Professor Luca tried to communicate. Don't come any closer, let's talk this out, voices rang out, trying to stop them. Unfortunately, Dill and his group only glanced at them with confusion, completely unaware of what they were saying. They mistook it for a provocation, their eyes flashing with murderous intent, ready to slaughter these foreigners. Fortunately, just as the tension was about to escalate, Su-Yun spoke up, "Don't attack yet." The ancient words had barely left his lips when both sides stopped, staring at him in astonishment. "You speak our language?" Dill asked incredulously. And judging from the situation, it was very fluent, without the slightest hint of unfamiliarity. "A foreigner this powerful?" Su-Yun nodded. Seeing his appearance, Professor Luca exclaimed in shock, "You not only know ancient Egyptian writing, but you also speak ancient Egyptian language." Richard and Sabino, who were hearing this for the first time, immediately looked at Su-Yun with astonishment. A teenager, so incredibly talented. No matter how surprised they were, as Su-Yun communicated with the guards, they could only numbly accept it. "Who are you, and how did you get to the Pyramid of the Sun?" Dill asked questioningly. "It's a long story. You can consider us messengers of God." Dill and the others' first reaction was disbelief. How could there be so many messengers? "Your resurrection is also related to God. He resurrected you." However, as soon as these words were spoken, Dill and the guards stopped their reprimands. They were overjoyed. It really was God. They were resurrected by God. Then, their brows furrowed again. These people, could they really be messengers? Emma, seeing that they could communicate, couldn't help but ask a question. Were they forced to be buried alive? The others were also curious. Su-Yun asked the guards this question. Upon hearing this, Dill said with a serious expression, "We serve God voluntarily, not as you think. Serving God is our honor." The guards all nodded. From childhood, they had been taught that God was supreme, and serving the guardian deity after death was their honor, not coercion. Su-Yun was somewhat silent, he couldn't see a trace of resentment on their faces, only pride. After he translated their answer, Emma and the others were unsurprisingly shocked. There were such people? After answering the question, Dill couldn't help but ask, "How can we see God?" His voice was filled with anxiety and urgency. Su-Yun said, "God should be outside the pyramid, we're about to go out to find him." Hearing this, the guards couldn't stay still any longer. After exchanging glances, they ran towards the outside of the pyramid without a word, not even having time to ask which god had resurrected them. "So hasty," Su-Yun said in surprise. "What did you say?" Supino's handsome face turned around. "I told them we were messengers, that they were resurrected gods, and that we were going out to find them," Su-Yun explained, then said, "Let's follow them." His words snapped everyone back to reality, their faces filled with anxiety again. They had almost forgotten they still had to stop Ra. "Quick, we must persuade Ra," one said urgently, his aged body bursting with astonishing strength as he quickly chased after the guards. The others were also panicked and hurriedly followed. Along the way, Jis learned the whole story from them, his mouth agape for a long time. The sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the corridor. After running for what seemed like several minutes, Su-Yun saw light ahead, the exit appeared before them. Once they left the Golden Gate and stood on the towering pyramid steps, everyone was stunned. Looking up, what they saw shattered their worldview. An endless, enormous golden pillar descended from the sky, piercing the pyramid's apex like a small sun. The entire pyramid was bathed in a golden light, as if it were built of gold. Staring at the blinding golden light, Richard in the crowd pointed in a direction and exclaimed, "Look over there. It's Ra." Everyone quickly looked in the direction he pointed, and sure enough, a being enveloped in golden light was floating beside the golden pillar. Just then, they noticed that the golden pillar began to dim, seemingly about to disappear. "The sun god," Dill exclaimed in astonishment. After speaking, He immediately turned to the handsome young man in shock. It wasn't the god of the underworld or the god of death who resurrected us, it was the sun god. What did he say? Emma asked. Suyun translated for Emma and the others, then nodded to Dale. The answer, the sun god, was unexpected for the guards, and their faces showed astonishment. According to divine authority, should it be the god of death and the god of the underworld who resurrected them? But then they realized that the sun god, as the king of the gods, was always powerful. How could he possibly fail to resurrect a person? Besides, this was the sun god's pyramid, it was perfectly normal for him to intervene. In an instant, fervor filled their eyes, and everyone felt the urge to meet the sun god and express their reverence and piety. As they were talking, the towering golden pillar dimmed to the point of being barely visible, almost disappearing. During this unusual time, the outside world was in an uproar. In Cairo, the capital, tens of millions of Egyptians, or foreign tourists, regardless of what they were doing, almost all came out of their homes. They stood in the open, enduring the scorching sun, staring dumbfounded at the golden pillar in the sky. Anyone who witnessed this miracle felt their scalp tingle. Amidst the discussions, phone calls were rapidly made. Some people were filming, others were live streaming. With such a large number of people involved, news of what happened in Cairo quickly spread around the world. Even top television stations dispatched helicopters and personnel to get first-hand information. Of course, developed countries were also involved, using high-definition satellites or other methods to gather information at every possible means. Even high-ranking U.S. officials, not wanting to miss out on trouble, pretended to accidentally leak some information. For example, they claimed to have captured images of the destination of the Golden Pillar and discovered an unprecedented pyramid. High-definition photos of the pyramid were everywhere. The pyramid, resembling a miniature sun, almost caused a global uproar. As a wonder of the world, everyone knew that the pyramid, along with the mysterious Golden Pillar, had sparked a surge of curiosity and fear. Various speculations and opinions circulated, with two theories gaining the most support. It really was built by aliens. Now the aliens have finally revealed themselves, and nonsense, it's clearly a miracle. However, compared to miracles, the most popular theory was an alien conspiracy. In an open space in Cairo with an excellent view, people dressed in various styles gazed at the Golden Pillar. Another streamer, wearing a sun hat, short-sleeved shirt, and shorts, with a sweet face and a youthful appearance, was holding an expensive phone, filming and explaining something. Suddenly, she said urgently, "Hello everyone, I'm Xiaoyu. Did you see that?" An amazing sight appeared in the sky above Cairo. As a popular Chinese streamer with millions of followers, she was originally in Cairo for tourism, but she never expected to witness such a magical scene. She knew her chance to boost her popularity had arrived, and without hesitation, she opened Hui Live. At the same time, she skillfully typed a stream title, "Miracle Appears in Egypt." Thanks to the title, her stream quickly attracted a large number of viewers, over 100,000, and still growing rapidly. Viewers in the stream were shocked when they saw the Golden Pillar. The chat was flooded with comments. "Holy crap, what is that? Alien black technology," everyone who saw it gasped. Xiaoyu explained urgently, "According to rumors, this event may be related to the Egyptian pyramids. That pillar of light was shooting towards an unknown pyramid." The chat quickly filled with comments. "It's confirmed, this is alien high technology. I think it might be a miracle. Where did this god come from? Aliens are more reliable," netizens argued fiercely. Xiaoyu smiled as she looked at the number of people who had grown to over 300,000. Just then, a series of voices came from the side, startling her. "Look, the golden pillars are starting to disappear. What's going on?" At least hundreds of millions of people worldwide were confused, wondering what had happened. For a moment, everyone's eyes were on the pyramids, wanting to see if something strange had occurred. Suyun withdrew the sunlight convergence, pondered for a moment, and prepared to float into the sky. However, before he could fly far, a shout came from the pyramid beneath his feet. "Great Ra, our technology is not so easy to deal with." One's tone was full of worry. "There's something called a nuclear bomb," Richard and the others were about to remind him. Unfortunately, before they could finish speaking, the sun god ignored them completely, merely glancing in their direction before moving and flying into the sky. This action immediately startled Richard and the others, filling their hearts with worry. "Will Ra be alright?" Emma asked nervously. "As the king of the gods, Ra is very powerful. He'll be fine," Juan said, trying to sound calm. The others were also conflicted. They feared the sun god would destroy humanity, but they also worried something might happen to him. The guards beside them looked puzzled. Where was the sun god going? They couldn't help but look at the handsome young man beside them, preparing to ask him. Suyun, enveloped in golden light, flew rapidly towards Cairo, speaking calmly as he said, "Corona spell." A blinding golden light erupted from his body, 4,000 words combined. Chapter 337 Divine Punishment. The blazing sun hangs high. As the golden pillar of light vanished and Suyun flew into the air above the pyramids, satellite cameras in orbit noticed him and immediately focused on him. When the images were transmitted to the computers of higher-ranking officials and researchers, everyone was shocked. Their first reaction to eagle-headed human was confusion. Some of the more knowledgeable individuals, connecting it to the pyramids, couldn't help but entertain an exaggerated thought. "No way, where's Ra going?" Dil asked Suyun in bewilderment. Suyun glanced at him and then explained, "It's been thousands of years since the fall of the ancient Egyptian dynasties." He briefly mentioned the dynasty's demise and humanity's possession of terrifying weapons, suggesting the sun god might be punishing them in anger. He then mentioned that Sabino and the others, fearing the god might be injured by such weapons, had tried to persuade the sun god. Upon hearing this, Dil was first shocked and disappointed by the dynasty's fall, then showed anger, shouting, "This is disrespect to the sun god." Before the sun god's appearance, they were filled with confusion. The appearance of the sun god astonished them, but also gave them a spiritual anchor. In their fervor, they couldn't tolerate anyone insulting the sun god. Besides, he was their supreme deity, and they had never even seen a nuclear bomb, assuming it was just an ordinary weapon. Such demeaning and insulting words towards the god were intolerable. "The power of the sun god is beyond our mortal comprehension," Dil said solemnly. Suyun relayed this to Richard and the others, causing them to frown and want to refute him. They felt that this ancient man was being too presumptuous. Ancient times were ancient times, and modern times were modern times. In their eyes, the sun god was easily invincible in ancient times. But now, the power of a nuclear bomb was beyond the imagination of the ancients. Even a god might suffer. "That weapon," Professor Luca sighed, about to explain the extent of the nuclear bomb's power. However, before they could explain it to Dil and the others, a change in the sky stunned them. In the distance, Egyptians, tourists, and netizens were intently watching the golden pillar of light disappear. Just as they were feeling disappointed, they suddenly saw blinding golden light emanating from where the pillar had disappeared. "Solar corona technique," Suyun murmured, and a terrifying transformation began around him. With a boom, a layer of flowing flames composed of light and energy enveloped him, like slowly flowing magma, resembling a giant orange-gold sun. The space around the sun began to distort, and even more dazzling golden light burst forth from him at that moment. The golden sun slowly flew towards the sky above Cairo. As it rose, Suyun pondered. "With my current strength as a fifth-level god, covering the entire city of Cairo is more than enough." Originally, he could only cover a distance of tens of thousands of meters, but due to the special nature of the divine technique, this was increased more than tenfold, becoming hundreds of thousands of meters, equivalent to hundreds of kilometers. A normal city is generally tens of kilometers wide, but Suyun could now cover 10 cities. Cairo has an area of over 3,000 square kilometers, equivalent to 50 or 60 kilometers in size, and the range of sunlight could extend far beyond that. However, in the real world, the divine technique also produced some changes. Within a few hundred kilometers, he could control the temperature of the sunlight at will. Beyond that distance, the sunlight's temperature would drastically decrease, becoming ordinary sunlight. Whether it was Richard and his men on the pyramid, or the hundreds of millions watching this scene, everyone was stunned. A dazzling golden light flashed, and a gigantic sun rose from where the golden pillar had disappeared. Two kinds of sunlight shone down from the sky, overlapping and falling upon the people. "My God," Richard murmured. "I think I know why he's called the sun god," Carlos said, his face smug. The sun god," Professor Luca stammered, somewhat lost in thought. He looked up, his eyes stinging from the golden sunlight, tears welling up, but he didn't seem to care, staring intently at the golden sun. The 20 members of the Dil Guard were all excited at this moment, uttering various prayers. "Holy, noble, and glorious sun god, you rise and shine up on the heavens, praise be to you, Ra, who awakens life from slumber. You are the king of the gods, the lord of all things. Your light illuminates every face, yet no one knows it. For millennia, you are the fervent source of new life. Time stirs up dust at your feet, yet you remain forever unchanged. Creator of time, you have transcended all time. At this moment, not only these people, but hundreds of millions of viewers watching this scene were utterly dumbfounded. Had they ever seen a sun before? Two suns, no less. The rise of that golden sun had completely stunned them. While shocked, their limited minds simply couldn't fathom what could possibly become a sun. In some research labs, commands echoed. Quickly calculate the size of this sun, a dignified-looking middle-aged man commanded urgently. Yes, a bespectacled researcher in his 30s began typing furiously on the supercomputer in front of him. 10 seconds or so passed before the researcher stopped, a look of shock flashing in his eyes. What's wrong? Speak quickly, the middle-aged man shouted urgently. That special sun, it's estimated to have an area of several thousand square kilometers. The energy it contains is terrifying, several times stronger than a normal sun of the same size, the researcher reported incredulously. What? The middle-aged man stammered, then muttered, what could possibly create such a large sun? Thinking this, he glanced at a photograph displayed on the supercomputer. It was a picture of a human with an eagle's head, taken by a satellite. Could there really be gods in the world? He thought in disbelief. The sun god, Amun-Ra, the king of the Egyptian gods. At this moment, not only he was incredulous, but other research labs had reached similar conclusions. Everyone stared at the photograph, and a flurry of discussion erupted. Under the gaze of hundreds of millions of people, the sun rapidly ascended into the sky. Finally, it stopped tens of thousands of meters above the ground, its position appearing very strange below Cairo. Like a solar eclipse, it gradually overlapped with the original sun, dazzlingly bright, causing a stinging pain in the eyes of those who watched, bringing tears to their eyes. This miraculous scene drew gasps of amazement from onlookers. The golden sun cast a warm glow, its temperature no lower than that of the real sun. The combined temperature of the two suns instantly made people feel unwell. In Cairo, the capital, the sun blazed overhead. Just as some people were about to seek shelter, the overlapping suns in the sky suddenly burst into a blinding blaze. Cries of alarm rang out as the sudden burst of light made them quickly lower their heads. Fortunately, the golden sun's burst was brief, and it soon returned to its normal brightness. However, the people of Cairo did not rejoice, for a terrifying scene unfolded. 50 degrees, 60 degrees, the golden sunlight poured down, the sun's rays growing increasingly intense, and with a rising temperature, the air density became uneven. The light began to distort on Cairo's sandy ground, making it feel like being in a desert, filling the eyes of more than 20 million people with terror. It's so hot, is this the end of the world? Amidst these questions, a terrifying thought also surfaced in their minds. Would the temperature keep rising? Panic gripped the crowd. In a tightly sealed research lab in Cairo, a gaunt man in his 50s or 60s urgently asked, "What's going on?" Under the piercing gazes of several high-ranking officials, the researchers' hearts skipped a beat, and they frantically began working. Soon, they had the specifics. The heat emanating from that sun suddenly intensified, raising the ground temperature to around 60 degrees Celsius, but it has now stopped rising, one researcher said. I want a specific reason for the sun's appearance, not this kind of common knowledge. The gaunt old man, Hanno, slammed his fist on the table angrily. A dozen or so researchers exchanged glances, remaining silent for a moment before hesitating to speak. The researcher who had spoken first hesitated, then said tentatively, I suspect that this sun was created by the mythical sun god. It might be divine punishment. A hint of awe flashed in his eyes, but he didn't continue. What nonsense! What god? Hanno shouted. A dozen or so researchers lowered their heads, silently wondering. They've even produced photos. Maybe it's God. It's definitely aliens, Hanno declared confidently, finally gritting his teeth and saying, contact the military and have them send fighter jets to investigate. Try to communicate, and if that fails, attack if necessary. However, despite his words, a hint of fear flickered in his eyes. The researchers hesitated, ultimately clinging to a sliver of hope, and didn't try to dissuade him. The order was relayed, and 3 fighter jets equipped with high-powered weaponry flew towards the sun. As the jets flew towards the sun, news came from the Cairo High Command that the temperature remained stable at 60 degrees Celsius, and the public should not panic. The matter was under investigation, and people were urged not to believe or spread rumors. Tens of millions of people breathed a sigh of relief. While temporarily relieved, under the threat of death, People began to investigate the situation using various means. Their efforts paid off, and they soon obtained an even more chilling piece of news. The sun is connected to the sun god Ra. Photos of Ra were leaked online, causing an uproar as people were baffled by the sudden appearance of a sun. Similar photos quickly appeared online, leaving netizens stunned. Under the blazing sun, streamer Xiaoyu, wearing sunglasses and an umbrella, endured the sweltering heat, continuing to film and explain. She picked up another phone and received a message and photos from her team, checking them with a mixture of surprise and disbelief. Meanwhile, her livestream, thanks to her frontline presence, was experiencing an unprecedented surge in viewers, reaching 10 million and still growing rapidly. Seeing Xiaoyu's expression, netizens became curious, flooding the chat with questions. Xiaoyu's expression changed slightly before she exclaimed in surprise, "Sorry to keep you waiting. I just received some amazing news, the latest update on the appearance of this sun. This sun might be related to the sun god in Egyptian mythology." The netizens' expressions brightened, utterly astonished. The sun god, Pul, what's going on? Xiaoyu glanced at the screen and continued explaining. The satellites in the sky took a set of high-definition photos of an eagle-headed, human-bodied being. It looks exactly like the sun god from mythology. And he appeared before the sun appeared. There's even a photo of him transformed into the sun. I know you guys don't believe it, but seeing is believing. I've already had my team upload the photos to my Weibo. You can go check it out. Hearing Xiaoyu's words, netizens flocked to the site. Soon, the photos of the sun god stunned them, and the live stream exploded with shock. There really is a god. No way, a myth has appeared. Holy crap, a barrage of shocked comments appeared. Just as the crowd erupted, the fighter jets in the sky reached high altitude, approaching the sun. However, what made them feel powerless was that the sun's position was simply too high. Even their fighter jets were powerless to get close. Moreover, as the distance closed, they felt the sun's immense size even more. Compared to the distant sun in the universe, this sun, seemingly within reach, was not much smaller to them. They were all colossal beings. Compared to it, they were like ants. Looking at the orange-gold flames on the sun's surface, they practically gave up on fighting. No wonder, at that moment, they only felt despair. Damn it, a sun tens of kilometers away, how could they possibly handle it? Even if they bombarded it with weapons, it would only be a tickle. Idiot leader. After cursing under his breath, the three fighter jets began their return flight. Suyun naturally noticed a few ants, but he completely ignored them, not caring at all. He was joking. Did he really think that massive solar shield tens of kilometers away was just a virtual number? Suyun declared, "Bring it on, I can handle it." He decided to slowly wear them down, not choosing to increase the temperature to a point of death all at once, preparing to slowly boil the frog. Soon, the Cairo leadership also noticed the temperature rising by 1 degree every 10 minutes and immediately felt despair. Just when they were at their wits' end, even considering whether to use nuclear weapons, a new piece of news stunned them. Professor Luca and others had released the video from inside the pyramids. Chapter 338 Pyramid Video Upload. Professor Luca and the others gazed at the blazing sun high in the sky, vaguely guessing the sun god's intentions, while also being utterly dumbfounded. The appearance of this enormous sun almost made them stop worrying about the sun god. "Professor Luca, is this the god you described, the one who seems like a human?" Emma suddenly asked hesitantly. "Oh," Professor Luca opened his mouth, then stammered. This wasn't what he had imagined. Could a human possibly become such a large sun? He felt that the title of God was more appropriate. What do we do now? Won't so many people in Cairo die from the sunburn? Emma's beautiful face was full of worry. She was no longer worried about Ra, but rather about humanity. On the pyramid side, Richard and the others could feel the intense sunlight, which showed how widespread the sunlight covered, and the situation Cairo was currently experiencing. What can we do? Are we supposed to fight the sun god? Professor Luca said irritably. I think Professor Luca is right. Carlos pondered for a moment, a strange worry creeping into his voice. On the contrary, we not only cannot help people, but we must also stop someone from angering the sun god. Why do you say that? Some people were taken aback, not quite understanding. Don't you understand? Carlos suddenly sighed. You think it's difficult for Ra to exterminate us humans? Everyone frowned upon hearing this, some disagreeing with his words. With our current technology, even if the sun god wanted to exterminate us, it would be difficult for him, right? Kyle felt that Carlos was exaggerating, giving the impression of boosting others' morale while diminishing their own. For so many years, humanity had relied on wisdom and technology to maintain its position as rulers. How could they be so easily destroyed? Not to mention anything else, just a bombardment of the entire world with nuclear weapons, even the sun god might not be able to withstand it. The others nodded in agreement, feeling that Kyle's words made some sense. Carlos glanced at them and shook his head. You have been blinded by human arrogance. The sun god's sun really can only be used to scorch people. You mean? Everyone's expression changed, vaguely realizing something. Carlos lowered his head and muttered, I think if we really anger the sun god, the sun might crash down. Silence fell. Emma and the others froze, their wide eyes filled with terror. Crash down? No way. The thought of this overlooked possibility sent chills down their spines. Yes, how could they have forgotten? That wasn't just a sun fixed in the sky. Their previous thinking had limited them, but now, reminded by Carlos, they suddenly understood that this possibility was extremely high. Imagine a sun that big crashing down. Its power wouldn't be less than that of a meteorite of the same size, right? Add in the speed, and humanity could truly be wiped out. I think we should stand with the sun god. Richard revealed a resolute smile, his face seemingly bathed in holy light. After all, we are his followers. That's right. We are faithful followers. Kyle smiled stiffly. Agreed. Well said. A chorus of agreement rang out hastily. Suyun's lips twitched slightly, and he casually agreed. What we need to do now is to make sure people understand the situation and prevent them from clashing with Ra, Carlos said seriously. How do we do that? Emma asked. Everyone pondered, their brows furrowing. Richard thought for a moment, then his eyes suddenly lit up. You forgot, I gave you 3 cameras before. Hearing this, Carlos, Matt, and Emma were startled and instinctively picked up the cameras hanging from their chests. How could I forget that? Carlos looked at the ever-working camera. With this, the people will know what happened and won't easily clash with Ra. Now that they had a solution, everyone quickly began editing the videos. Soon, with their efforts, 3 videos about the pyramids were completed. To maximize dissemination, they uploaded the videos to various video websites both domestically and internationally, and even sent copies to official channels. It's done. Now it's up to them to do what they do. I just hope they don't clash with the sun god, Carlos sighed. As soon as they released the videos, thanks to their catchy titles, people quickly clicked to watch them. Bach, a native Egyptian in his 40s, was gripped by fear by the unusual sun and rumors of divine punishment. He huddled indoors, enduring the sweltering heat while frantically searching his phone for updates, hoping for some solace or a breakdown. As an Egyptian, he worshipped Allah, having long forgotten the sun god Ra, even previously displaying a sense of superiority and belittling those who revered him. Only now, witnessing the sun overhead, did he realize the weight of regret and fear. In his anxiety, he stumbled upon a video, mysterious pyramid interior, sun god appears and performs miracles. Intrigued, he immediately clicked on it. Not only him, but the video quickly went viral, its views rapidly increasing, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even high-ranking officials from various countries watched it with trepidation. In a discussion room in Cairo, 3 elderly, gray-haired officials stared intently at the screen. As the video began playing, the first scene was enough to take one's breath away. The screen was flooded with comments. Golden door, gilded movie prop, is it real or fake? It's all gold. Doubt and shock filled the screen. An entrance made to be this extravagant. The 3 old men exchanged glances, also stunned by the revealed golden door. Based on their knowledge, they knew this door was definitely not gilded or a prop. The appearance of this golden door made them and the viewers anticipate what would happen next. As the group entered the passageway, the pitch-black environment exuded an eerie atmosphere. Flashlight beams shone on the stone walls, revealing vibrant murals that amazed the viewers, and even some archaeologists were astonished. When they discovered the wall inlaid with scarabs, especially when one of the insects moved, those watching felt their scalps tingle and gasped. The scene was incredibly realistic, with no trace of special effects. Even the viewers knew it was likely real. Knowing it wasn't fake, the immersion was palpable. Watching Carlos and the others flee in panic, their hearts pounded with anxiety, fearing that scarab beetles would emerge and overwhelm them. As they ran, the handsome young man who had caught up at the back told them that he had stomped the scarab beetle to death, saying that they were all insects, so why couldn't he just kill them? The 3 old men and the netizens were all speechless, their mouths agape. Chapter 339 Shocked Netizens. Just kidding, scarabs are just ordinary insects. Is this guy a monster? What he said makes sense. Insects can indeed be crushed, but why do I feel like arguing with him? Netizens chimed in with their comments, while also expressing their admiration. The boy's words also drew their attention, especially his exquisitely beautiful, almost artistic face, which drew the praise. The video's comments section was flooded with messages. What a handsome boy. Just based on his looks, I've decided to become a fan. If you were to star in a movie, how much would the box office increase? Faced with a boy's appearance, people of all ages and genders instantly showered him with compliments, and even entertainment companies wanted to poach him, asking for his contact information. Unfortunately, as the cameras shifted away from him, they could only look on with regret, turning their attention to the passageway. After walking for a short while, a secret chamber filled with gold appeared before them. Looking at the massive pile of gold, the constantly scrolling video comments stopped. The netizens were shocked, and even the high-ranking officials in Cairo were astonished. So much gold. Some countries' national treasuries might not even contain that much. Even the highest levels of government couldn't sit still. How much was it worth? Orders were quickly issued. Find it. They had to find this pyramid. Even the common people, seeing so much gold, had their eyes redden, their desire for treasure rising. Only when Jis, carrying the gold, suddenly died of poisoning did the crowd calm down slightly, filled with lingering fear. How ruthless the ancient Egyptians were. Leaving the Golden Palace, Carlos and his group continued their journey, then saw the brown-spotted walls. Some archaeologists familiar with Egyptian tombs immediately paled. It looked like some kind of germ. The mummified corpses that appeared next, and the sudden traps, made their hearts pound. Finally, Suyun displayed astonishing skills, leaving them speechless. That running speed could win an Olympic gold medal. Netizens didn't think too much about it. This level was still considered normal. However, when they reached the most dangerous stone bridge section, the traps sent chills down the spines of the audience, and Suyun's skills made them question their existence. Was this terrifying skill even human? When the black umbrella appeared, its devastating power immediately led the audience to believe it wasn't human, but an alien. Some scientists stared intently at the umbrella, inwardly protesting its scientific incomprehension. After crossing the stone bridge and opening the Golden Gate, the star map on the roof of the Temple of the Sun, along with Suyun's knowledgeable explanations, imbued the young man with an air of mystery. Then came the appearance of the tomb guardians. Finally, the triggering of the mechanism, the beam of light shooting straight down, and the golden statue of the sun god instantly invigorated them, making them more serious than ever before, sensing the crucial moment had arrived. And indeed, as the conflict erupted, the sun god made his appearance. In a flash of light, a majestic figure shrouded in golden light appeared, just as rumored, a falcon-headed, human-bodied figure exuding immense majesty. Everyone who saw the sun god, regardless of their faith in him, was deeply moved. The resurrection of Old Wan and the healing of everyone else further demonstrated the power of the sun god. Some elderly higher-ranking officials and wealthy individuals watched with rapid breathing and burning eyes. Unfortunately, the sun god asked a question and then disappeared with a cold snort, chilling their hearts and revealing why the sun god had unleashed divine punishment. This is troublesome, Hanno frowned. Although the dynasty's downfall was unrelated to their generation, it was indeed connected to their ancestors, which explained why they were being targeted. This situation was beyond redemption. Is there no way to ease tensions? Hanno said unwillingly. Perhaps the only option was to seek help from other countries and allow them to test nuclear missiles. Hearing this, he noticed two other elderly men nearby. One of them, a burly and imposing old man, glanced at him. He said in a deep voice, "Not necessarily, we might still have a chance." "What?" Hanno asked, puzzled. "You've forgotten something. We also have some ancient Egyptian blood." Sadiq's eyes gleamed. "Perhaps we still have a chance to be forgiven by the sun god." Hanno and Sadiq suddenly understood. Sadiq hadn't mentioned it, and they'd all forgotten that over the years, modern Egyptians all carried some ancient Egyptian blood, even the three of them. Sadiq continued, "If we succeed, with the help of the sun god, perhaps we can elevate Egypt's status." Hanno, hearing this, became excited. "Whether we succeed or not, we have to try." "I second that," another old man quickly added. As they were excitedly discussing this, the video on the large screen next to them happened to show the encounter with the guards. Looking at the ancient armor and weapons, both the three of them and the netizens were stunned. After some investigation, they learned that these were corpses resurrected from thousands of years old, and the shock was so intense that their minds went blank for a moment. The comments section was flooded with messages: thousands of years dead resurrected by the sun god, ancient Egyptians reappear, a true miracle, who in the world doesn't have relatives or friends, or simply fear death? The sun god's ability to resurrect is like hitting a nerve. In an instant, many people's eyes lit up with fervor. Hanno and the other two exchanged glances, and a series of arrangements were quickly relayed. High in the sky, inside the scorching core of the sun, Suyun checked his faith threads and was somewhat surprised. His original 500,000 plus faith threads were rapidly increasing after he transformed into the sun and hung high in the sky. Just now, something had happened, and the rate at which his faith threads increased had suddenly surged. In a short time, he had increased from over 500,000 to over 1.5 million. He only needed a few 100,000 more faith threads to advance to the next level. The longer I hang in the air, the more faith threads I'll accumulate. I estimate I'll advance in an hour or two. After all, with his life threatened, among Cairo's more than 20 million people, there would inevitably be those who couldn't bear the fear and would come to believe in him. Of course, the most important factor was the video circulating online, which had an astonishing effect based on the sheer number of people. Suyun couldn't help but sigh. To quickly increase faith threads, the more high profile the better. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 340 Advancement to 6th Level Godhood. The sun blazed high, its blinding golden light pouring down. As time passed, about an hour went by, and the surface temperature in Cairo was approaching 70 degrees Celsius. High in the sky, Suyun watched the threads of faith, almost there, just a few hundred more. Just as he was feeling elated, he suddenly noticed something, and his brow furrowed. He turned his head to look in one direction. The surrounding flames did not obstruct his view at all, and he easily spotted some long, thin objects rapidly approaching. They were a dozen or so missiles, shaped like rockets, each 7 or 8 meters long, enormous in size. They were flying straight towards Suyun. In a military base in Cairo, a middle-aged officer urgently shouted, "What's going on? Where did these missiles come from? Intercept them immediately," he roared. "This must be the work of another country. How despicable. Is this an attempt to anger the sun god so he can destroy us?" He was somewhat alarmed, wondering if the information had been leaked. Just as the higher-ups were preparing to adopt a conciliatory plan, what if the missiles struck the sun, the incarnation of the sun god, and angered the sun god? Would Cairo be destroyed? Yes, the subordinate, sweating profusely, immediately began the interception operation. More than 20 slender anti-aircraft missiles were launched under control, heading straight for the dozen or so huge interceptors. Boom, boom, boom. Soon, brilliant, huge sparks exploded in the sky. However, although the anti-aircraft missiles intercepted some, 2 of them broke through the interception and exploded straight towards the golden sun. The middle-aged officer's face turned ashen. At this moment, some satellites in the sky slightly rotated their lenses, pointing directly at the sun, wanting to see what would happen. Suyun looked at the 2 long needles piercing towards his sun, was slightly surprised, but then paid no attention and let them explode. After approaching the golden sun, 2 huge fireballs appeared. Boom, boom. Loud noises rang out. And then, nothing happened. After some streaks of flame splashed on the sun's outer shell, nothing else happened, like a tickle. The middle-aged officer and the rest of the base, who had been anxiously observing the situation, were completely stunned. Those who saw the scene, captured by satellites in the sky, were also dumbfounded. Some equipment was constantly monitoring the sun and broadcasting live, and the scene was also seen by netizens, who were speechless. "My God, is it trying to cool the sun? Trash missile." Mocking comments flooded the internet. After the initial shock, people quickly understood why this was happening. Missiles, even nuclear bombs, are ultimately thermal weapons, and high temperature is arguably one of the most important destructive forces. Given the sun's temperature, a nuclear bomb detonating on it would probably cause no damage. As for the impact of the explosion, it would be meaningless to a sun only a few dozen kilometers in size. That little force couldn't possibly move such a behemoth. In short, for humanity, Dealing with Ra's son with current methods is almost impossible. The guys who had secretly launched missiles to probe the sun were immediately alarmed by the scene. As for Cairo, they breathed a sigh of relief. Suyun watched the bombing and couldn't help but twitch his lips. He initially intended to ignore it. But considering the bombardment he'd suffered, it would be beneath his divine dignity not to make a gesture. Just then, the threads of faith within him reached 2 million, and a familiar feeling arose in his heart. Suyun joyfully released the restrictions within his body. The blue that had previously occupied 99% of his divine core and characters completely overwhelmed the last bit of sign. As the divine core emitted a soft hum, a blue flame erupted, and the divine core melted into a ball of blue energy, which then rapidly condensed. Soon, a brilliant cyan divine core with 63 facets appeared in the divine core space. A divine power, more than 10 times stronger, quickly flowed into his divine body, rapidly transforming it and pushing it towards greater perfection. A 6th-level god. Suyun felt the power he possessed, an unprecedented strength. Although he hadn't made a move, his calculations showed that a casual strike could now reach a range of hundreds of thousands of meters, or hundreds of kilometers. Furthermore, if combined with the Corona technique, he could influence an area of several thousand kilometers, nearly the size of a country. For example, right now, Corona technique, as the words fell, the sun began to deform, becoming extremely unstable. Those who were about to look away with regret and apprehension now noticed the changing sun. After a moment of stunned silence, a delighted thought popped into their minds. Could it be that this sun is all bark and no bite? The guy who had secretly launched the missile was overjoyed and laughed loudly. Haha. However, the triumphant laughter didn't last long. It abruptly stopped the next second, like a duck being choked, unable to laugh anymore. After becoming unstable, the sun didn't collapse as everyone expected. Instead, it began to expand rapidly. In a short time, it expanded to a range of hundreds of kilometers, equivalent to the size of 10 cities. Those who witnessed this scene froze. Gasps of astonishment echoed from all over the world, making a significant contribution to global warming. A gigantic sun hung in the sky, its golden flames flowing slowly, radiating energy waves that were utterly terrifying. Golden sunlight shone down over an area of thousands of kilometers, this time not just limited to the vicinity of Cairo, but covering most of Egypt. Absolutely astonishing. Chapter 341 Requirements for Advancing to Level 7 God. The sun's colossal size shattered some people's illusions, extinguishing any will to resist and even instilling despair. When the sun was only a few dozen kilometers in size, the situation with those 2 missiles showed that even nuclear weapons might be ineffective. Now, at hundreds of kilometers, it was obvious to everyone that nuclear weapons would be utterly useless. An additional concern weighed heavily on the minds of high-ranking officials in various countries, instilling a sense of awe. Hanno and his 2 companions stood on a high balcony, staring blankly at the immense sun overhead. Is this truly the limit of the sun god? Hanno murmured to himself. The other 2 beside him fell silent upon hearing this. The sun, which was previously only a few dozen kilometers in size, has now grown to several hundred kilometers, a tenfold increase. The sun god must have held back before. Will we anger him and incur his wrath? The 3 panicked at the thought. The sun was now much larger than the entire city of Cairo. Ra wouldn't need to do anything else, just by unleashing the sun, the entire capital would be reduced to ashes. And there was something even more terrifying. This might not be the sun god's limit. If the sun god had this ability, why didn't it become this large before? Clearly, the sun god was only punishing us. He didn't intend to destroy our spirit. Hanno's eyes held a hint of smugness. Otherwise, why didn't he just unleash the sun directly instead of punishing us with scorching heat? Sadiq understood this as well, feeling both pleased and worried. He said, now Ra is likely enraged. The sun has become so huge, is it possible that Ra will choose to destroy the world? Hiss, the thought was terrifying. This series of thoughts sent a chill down the spines of the 3 men and others who understood the situation, filling them with fear of divine power. Quickly, we must quickly pass on the message. We can't wait any longer, we must seek the sun god's forgiveness as soon as possible, Sadiq said heavily. Yes, another old man, Arya, nodded solemnly, hopefully, the sun god won't take his anger out on us. That stupid and damned America. During this time, they had figured out which country had secretly launched the missiles. Besides the self-proclaimed #1 nation, the United States, who else was truly despicable? Unfortunately, even in their anger, they dared not provoke the Drogue nation unless they had the sun god's help. But was that possible? How could God care about the thoughts of ants like them? Not destroying them was already a sign of Ra's mercy. A gigantic, blazing sun hung in the sky. Within a radius of several thousand kilometers around Cairo, the temperature began to rise rapidly. If it weren't for Su Yun controlling the sun's temperature, the entire city of Cairo would have become a hellish inferno. After all, with such a massive sun hovering overhead, the distance was simply too close. If the restrictions were lifted, the humans below would surely perish. So, I've become this powerful now, Su Yun murmured. He controlled the temperature as he rapidly ascended into the sky, causing the golden sun to quickly move away from the ground. The people on the ground, watching the sun, so close to them, recede, finally recovering from their despair. The golden sun moved quickly, soon reaching thousands of kilometers above the ground and entering the atmosphere. This distance was just right, not too close to the ground, and the temperature of the sunlight could be controlled. The ground temperature in Cairo dropped rapidly, but only returned to its previous level. Understanding this, the Egyptians felt a sense of despair. Soon, orders came from above, commanding the people to pray fervently at home, begging the sun god for forgiveness. In Egypt, the most prevalent religions were Allah and God, but in this moment of life-threatening circumstances, people disregarded everything else. They hastily converted to the religion of Ra, hoping he would spare them. The people prayed to the sun god according to the prescribed prayers. Holy and noble Ra, please forgive our transgressions, forgive your people, bestow your mercy, remove the punishment, and pardon us. Prayers, whether feigned or sincere, echoed in every corner. Everyone was doing their part, hoping to gain Ra's forgiveness. Such a grand gesture directly astonished the netizens watching, leaving them speechless. Even Su Yun, high in the sky, was taken aback by the prayers below. He noticed that the number of faith threads had already reached over 2 million and was rapidly increasing. Gazing at the noble purple at the bottom of his divine core, he quickly calculated, for the next advancement, I must reach 10 million faith threads. At this rate, it won't be long before I reach 10 million, Su Yun thought, stroking his chin. It's a bit of a pity, though. Even under the fear of divine punishment, it will be very difficult for those Cairo Egyptians to reach the required number of advancements. After all, among modern Egyptians, the most prevalent faith is still in Allah and God. It's unrealistic to expect them to change their beliefs overnight. Even though most of them are praying now, it's mostly feigned. Su Yun didn't mind. As time goes by, more and more people will eventually come to believe from the heart. However, the Egyptians below are quite interesting. Listening to the prayers, he couldn't help but smile. They actually say they have ancient Egyptian blood, that they are also my people, and that I should let them go. Su Yun praised, they're quite clever. What amused him even more was that some of them even mentioned the culprits of the missiles in their prayers, as if they were afraid of his wrath. The United States, huh? They've given me an excuse to take action. What Su Yun lacked most right now was a large number of believers, so naturally he wouldn't let go of this golden opportunity. The threat of a 7th-level god from another world constantly reminded him that he needed to improve his strength as quickly as possible. With his current 6th-level god strength, if he combined it with blessing spells, he could put up a fight against the opponent, but the chances of victory were slim. Anyone who could advance to the 7th level was definitely not simple. Their foundation and lifespan were astonishing. They were far superior to someone like himself, a freak who had cheated his way to 6th level in a few months with little foundation. Su Yun estimated that it would take at least 1,000 years to advance to the 7th level. The divine artifacts and other things that could be obtained in such a long time were definitely a huge threat. Continuing to challenge opponents of higher levels would certainly not be easy, otherwise, a 7th-level god would be too useless. Chapter 342 The Second Son. What a pity. If I had enough faith crystals, I'm confident I could defeat them, Su Yun suddenly sighed. Ultimately, it's all about being poor. It seems I need to find a way to increase my faith crystal reserves after returning to the other world. It's time to put my money-grabbing plan into action. Su Yun shook his head. But for now, let's try to see if I can reach level 7 godhood before they attack. Listening to the prayers around him, he thought for a moment, then controlled the sun to lower the temperature further, keeping the ground at around 40 degrees Celsius. Inside a room. It's so hot, a little boy wiped his forehead, looking like he was about to cry. The middle-aged woman patted the little boy's head and comforted him. Just bear with it, you'll recover soon. As long as we pray sincerely, the god Ra will definitely forgive us, she said, using words she herself wasn't sure of to comfort the little boy. The little boy's eyes lit up, and he nodded earnestly, saying childishly, Ra will definitely forgive us. The woman's face darkened, and just as she was about to say something, a middle-aged man in the house suddenly said doubtfully, I feel the temperature has dropped. Is it just my imagination? The woman paused, then quickly checked her senses and exclaimed with delight, I feel it too. Ra has forgiven us. The little boy clapped his hands excitedly. Soon, all 20 million people in Cairo noticed this. With the temperature dropping by nearly 20 degrees, anyone who wasn't an idiot could sense the change. Ra has forgiven us, that's wonderful, haha. Instantly, cheers echoed throughout Cairo. Of course, they also knew why this had happened. The temperature had dropped after they prayed. Understanding this, the Egyptians immediately intensified the prayers. Hanno and his two companions exchanged glances, their eyes filled with excitement. They had really chosen the right method. Thank goodness we didn't clash with the sun god. The three were filled with relief, but at the same time, a glimmer of hope also appeared in their hearts. If Ra could become the patron god of Egypt, a fanatical light shone in the eyes of the three. With a sun god, what need would there be for nuclear bombs? This was far more terrifying than nuclear threats. In space, Su-Yun glanced at the distant moon and planets like Mars in the solar system, a thought forming in his mind to go and see. I've heard the moon is hollow, and that ancient civilizations once existed on Mars. I wonder if these rumors are true. These two things are often used online to generate traffic, making him somewhat curious, unsure if they were just made up. After a while, he suppressed this feeling. Forget it, next time. This time, I need to focus on important matters. He glanced at the sun around him, then moved, suddenly separating himself from the sun. Walking on the fiery surface of the sun, Su-Yun cast a blessing spell and, relying on a vague intuition, flew towards the U.S. Capitol. His figure streaked through the air, leaving not even an afterimage. As for the sun, he left it there. The sun could be used outside his body anyway, and it wouldn't disappear unless he wanted to. Even the energy consumption is minimal, relying on time to dissipate. It's unknown how long it will take. The U.S. Capitol. Residents of the capital watched Egypt's disaster with schadenfreude, and various mocking comments circulated online. Oh my God. Egypt is in such a sorry state. May God bless them, someone immediately retorted. God can't bless them, they're praying to that sun god Ra, haha, sigh, those Egyptians gave in so easily, so useless. Words of schadenfreude constantly appeared in the eyes of Americans. What happened in Egypt was a topic of conversation for them, quite amusing. They ate a lot of dessert and enjoyed watching. Until a blinding light appeared overhead. They instinctively looked up and were dumbfounded. The night sky was pitch black. Unlike the afternoon in Egypt, the sun had long since set here. It was past 8 o'clock in the evening. A huge sun pierced the darkness and descended upon the U.S. Capitol. Like the dawn breaking, a familiar and beautiful day began again. To the untrained eye, it would seem like morning, the time when all things awaken. Animals, those enjoying their nightlife, and those already asleep were all jolted awake by the blazing sun and intense heat. Brilliant golden light spilled across the ground. 30 degrees, 40 degrees, 60 degrees, and soon the temperature reached 60 degrees. Instantly, exclamations of surprise echoed from the capital and even from New York, over 300 kilometers away. Impossible, someone tell me this isn't real, the Egyptian sun has moved here. Shock and incomprehension poured from people's mouths. They dared not gloat any longer, their hearts were filled with panic. Not long after the sun appeared, this newly appeared sun quickly caused a stir around the world. Wasn't the sun in Egypt? How did it appear here? After investigation, hundreds of millions of people were shocked. The Egyptian sun hadn't disappeared, this was a second sun. What this meant, anyone with a modicum of intelligence understood. This was terrifying. The sun god hadn't gone all out, this second sun was proof. Perhaps, if he wanted, even more suns could appear. Everyone began to fear the sun god, dreading his power, because no one knew if the sun would appear overhead next. Online discussions were rampant. The terrifying sun god, how could the sun god appear in the US? What happened? Does anyone know? With these questions, the resourceful netizens quickly uncovered the truth. It was those two missiles. Now, no one was afraid anymore, and they seized the opportunity to mock the U.S. Chinese netizens, bypassing the Great Firewall, left comments, "This is too powerful and domineering. Besides the sun god, who dares to provoke the US like this? If you hadn't stopped me, I would soon be a follower of the sun god." Add 1. Serves him right, haha. As time passed, under the threat of rising temperatures, millions of people in the capital and New York quickly understood what had happened and took action. Under the scorching night sun, a large group of people began street protests, even surrounding important locations and holding protests. Groups of white men held up signs and roared, "Fuck, hand over the guy who fired the missile, make him come out and kill himself, you damn bastard, come out here." Chapter 343 The Pyramid Expedition comes to an end. Soldiers in black uniforms, armed with guns, desperately tried to hold back the surging crowd, nearly being overwhelmed by them. One soldier, who had been holding them back for a long time and was taking a break, complained, "I've had enough." Not only were the civilians protesting, but even the soldiers were reaching their breaking point. This time was different. Under the threat of the sun, everyone was equal. They, the soldiers, were also human, and they didn't want to pay the price for the mistakes of their superiors. The U.S. High Command was instantly overwhelmed, and at the same time, they were furious. When had they ever suffered like this? They were always the ones bullying and retaliating against others. When had it become their turn to retaliate? Unfortunately, despite their murderous intent, they had to face reality. Faced with a sun hundreds of kilometers in size, even emptying the U.S. nuclear arsenal to bomb the sun would be utterly useless. Oh, perhaps it could be used to give the sun a breeze and a bath. Inside a luxurious room, sun god, a middle-aged man gritted his teeth, his face filled with hatred. The sun hung high in the sky, and more than an hour passed. With a continuously rising temperature, millions began the protests. As expected, the higher-ups simply abandoned the culprit. The charges, of course, were unauthorized use of high-powered weapons to attack another country's capital and attacking a deity. He was not only stripped of his position but also imprisoned. The middle-aged man, attempting to escape, was caught red-handed, struggling with a face full of resentment. "No, you can't do this, let me go." Unfortunately, no matter how he cried out, this arrogant man who had used high-powered weapons without authorization was imprisoned, his face ashen. Floating above the U.S. Capitol, Suyun, seeing this, speechlessly lowered the temperature, maintaining it at 50 degrees Celsius. Although the sun wasn't removed, exclamations still echoed from the ground. "Thank you, sun god," shouted a man named Nick from the crowd. "Now I am your faithful follower," shouted a young man named Walter. Suyun, hearing the Americans who were being tortured yet thanking him, couldn't help but show a strange expression. More than 3 million threads of faith. Cairo, Egypt, outside the Pyramid of the Sun. "This place has been exposed, and someone will be here soon," Emma said to Richard. "Boss, what do we do now? As believers of the sun god, I think the god won't stop us from taking some gold and leaving." Richard coughed a few times, trying to find an excuse for himself. He was really unwilling to leave without taking some gold. "What did you say?" Sibino and the others turned around and glared at him. Richard's heart skipped a beat, secretly regretting his quick tongue, but he had already expected it. When the sun god appeared, he knew that this time there probably wouldn't be any gains. Even if he risked offending the god to take the gold, it wouldn't be easy to get past the tomb keepers and the ancient Egyptian guards. The atmosphere became tense for a moment. The 20 guards of the pyramid looked at them in confusion, not knowing what they were talking about. Suyun's lips twitched slightly, and he broke the atmosphere by saying, "What about these people?" He pointed to the guards, including Dill. Everyone turned to look, and hesitated for a moment. These 20 large, brown-skinned men, dressed in ancient attire, would cause quite a stir if they went out. "Won't they be captured and studied?" Emma suddenly asked worriedly. Everyone's expression changed. It's true, the extinct ancient Egyptians, with their secret of resurrection, really do have research value. Professor Luca thought for a moment and said, "If we mention the name of the sun god, they definitely won't dare." Seeing the professor's confident look, Kyle couldn't help but tease, "Professor, didn't you firmly believe in science? Why have you changed your mind now?" After a series of setbacks, Professor Luca had developed resistance and said without changing his expression, "Theology also has research value, we can't deny it, everyone." Sibino looked directly at Richard and said, "The Pyramid of the Sun isn't so easy to enter. You don't need to worry about the problems here, you should leave." He gave them the order to leave. Helpless, Richard and the others parted on bad terms with the tomb keepers. And this search, the treasure hunt, was essentially a complete waste of time and money. Of course, it's possible someone secretly hid something, given the abundance of opportunities. And any one of those items would be a highly valuable artifact. Sabino and his group watched them walk away. Once they were out of sight, the tomb keepers discussed the matter and decided to wait at the Pyramid of the Sun. However, they waited a long time without seeing the god appear, and in desperation, they had to restore the pyramid's many mechanisms. Then they chose to leave, taking the 20 guards back to their base. However, because they left a little late, they were ambushed as soon as they exited the pyramid. The moment Dill and the other guards were seen, those people were astonished. They had seen something in videos and in real life. Seeing that everything was completely different, those people were even more awestruck by the power of the sun god. If Sabino and his companions hadn't brought up the sun god, those people might not have let them leave. However, even if they were forced to leave temporarily due to the sun god's divine power, who knows what the other side might do later for the secret of resurrection? As for the pyramids, the external barriers alone, along with the pyramid's true entrance and traps, were enough to give those people trouble. Whether they even dared to risk angering the sun god and enter the pyramids was a question. Several hours passed. The real sun in Cairo, Egypt, had already set, but the sun high in the sky still hung, making the entire city as bright as day, turning it into a true city that never sleeps. However, the Egyptians were no longer worried. As they prayed, the temperature in the sky grew lower and lower. This must mean that Ra had forgiven them. The people of Cairo thought happily. In fact, the sun god on the hearts of the people was already preparing to withdraw. More than 6 million threads of faith, and they are still growing rapidly. Su Yun hesitated for a moment. Forget it, I'd better hang up for a while longer. This faith is coming too fast. He began to think about the other world. I need to go back and see if that 7th level god has. Just as he was thinking this, he suddenly had a feeling, a bad premonition, as if something bad was happening. His expression changed. Something's wrong in the other world. He was invincible in reality, so it could only be something wrong in the other world. Oh no. Chapter 344 Crisis approaches. Night fell, the moonlight like a veil. The Yanhuang tribe. Teams of burly men patrolled the tribe, their eyes warily watching the darkness, guarding against attacks from wild beasts and evil creatures. However, despite their diligent patrol, in a dark corner, a being watched them with a cold smile. Ziyan surveyed the tribe, shaking his head. What a weak tribe. It's hard to imagine those two, Zifen and Ziyan, would die. They couldn't even defeat this tribe's minor god. 2 pieces of trash, a disgrace to Father God, as one of the 3 sons of the great evil god, and the eldest. His strength was naturally the greatest, a full level above those 2 trash, reaching level 7. Now, after the deaths of those 2 who had always opposed him, facing the enraged Father God, he naturally volunteered to investigate. Following the clues, he found the Thunder Tribe. With a cautious heart, he used some methods to extract the entire story from the Thunder Tribe's followers. Upon hearing that Zifen and his companion had been killed by a minor 4th level god, his first reaction was disbelief, thinking the information was incorrect. Only after confirming repeatedly did he realize with astonishment that Zifen and his companion had indeed been killed by a 4th level god. Those 2 were comparable to 5th level gods, yet they died so easily. He was momentarily stunned. Fortunately, after investigating and learning that the 4th level god had likely used some limited method to ascend, he breathed a sigh of relief. As a 7th level being, and a demigod possessing a divine artifact, he was confident he was no weaker than any 6th level god, let alone a 4th level god. That method could only raise 1 level at most. It's absolutely impossible to advance further, Ziyan sneered. The 2-level difference gave him complete confidence, allowing him to relax completely. Speaking of which, that god of light had truly amazed him. Beings capable of surpassing levels only existed in stories, right? Such beings were usually freaks, possessing immense potential. He even speculated that the other party might even reach the level of a father god and become a ruler of a region. However, that's where it ends, Ziyan said excitedly. Who told you to run into me, to kill a god, especially one with exceptional talent who could reach the level of a father god in the future? Just thinking about it made him incredibly excited. However, despite his excitement, he still remained cautious and prepared to go to that tribe to see if the information was wrong. When he arrived, he was shocked to find that the tribe had a pitifully small population, completely unlike the size of a tribe belonging to a 4th-level god. This made him even more relaxed. Of course, none of this mattered. What delighted him most was what he found in this tribe. The divinely bestowed trees and the divinely bestowed plants that could be mass-produced directly surprised him. As Zetian thought this, he suddenly flipped his hand, and several things appeared in his hand. They were several kinds of divinely bestowed plants. He picked up a red divinely bestowed plant and tasted it. Instantly, a spicy and numbing sensation came over him, making his eyes light up. Not bad, not bad, the taste is really special. He had also learned the uses of this thing from the Yanhuang tribe using the soul loss technique. With this chili pepper, the food will really taste better. Zetian's eyes gleamed with anticipation, his face beaming. This thing could also be sold as a specialty, and their Z tribe could earn a lot of faith crystals in the future. Then, he picked up a bright green bok choy and tasted it. A mass-producible divinely bestowed plant. This level 4 little god has so many good things, Zetian chuckled. And that wasn't all. The secrets he gleaned from the lost souls of the Yanhuang tribe were astonishing. He then took out a small white bowl containing some snowflake salt, examining it with admiration. This thing called porcelain is really beautiful. I wonder how that little god came up with it. He touched it, it was incredibly smooth, and the more he touched it, the more he liked it. After touching the porcelain, looking at the snowflake salt in the bowl, he couldn't help but think about the method of refining this salt. The more he thought about it, the more impressed he became, secretly thinking that the little god was truly clever. Walking in the darkness, he headed towards the divinely bestowed plant field. Along the way, neither the tribe's people training nor the old tortoise lying in the distance noticed him. He was like an invisible man, observing the tribe's environment with great interest, treating the Yanhuang tribe as his own backyard. Upon arriving at the divinely bestowed plant field, he glanced at the thriving saplings before turning his gaze to the divinely bestowed trees. He plucked a flower from one tree, and the moment he tasted it, he felt his mind quicken. These are all good things. Zetian greedily gazed at the divinely bestowed plants. What a pity, all these things will be mine in the future, he sighed. I almost couldn't bear to kill you. It's a pity you killed those two good-for-nothings, Zifen, he thought with regret. Otherwise, with so many benefits, he could have suggested to the Father God that he take the minor god as a subordinate deity. He wanted to immediately possess all these good things, but the minor god was nowhere to be seen, having not appeared for so long. Thinking this, he continued wandering through the tribe. As he walked, he came to the altar where the divine stone was placed. Reaching out and patting the so-called divine stone, he couldn't help but feel disappointed. For so many days, he had been humiliatingly playing with the divine stone every day, but the minor god hadn't appeared, and he didn't know where he had gone, leaving him quite disappointed. If that god had appeared sooner, he could have killed him sooner and taken the good stuff back to the tribe. With his strength comparable to a 6th-level god, he really didn't take that 4th-level minor god seriously. If it weren't for the fact that the other party had left all his belongings here, he would have suspected that the minor god had abandoned his followers out of fear and simply fled. Should I destroy this divine stone and see if he comes back? A red light flashed in Zetian's eyes, revealing an excited look. He stretched out his right hand, pointing it directly at the divine stone, as if he was about to destroy it at any moment. A look of hesitation flashed in his eyes, and in the end, he lowered his hand. That guy has too much potential, I can't let him live. I can't arouse his vigilance. If he discovers something is wrong and runs away, the tribe will definitely have another great enemy in the future. He gritted his teeth and suppressed his desire to kill. Damn it, when you come back, I will definitely torture you properly and make you waste my time. Zetian's face was full of ferocity. He'd been using this excuse to stop himself for days, and it was driving him crazy. If it weren't for this excuse, he would have wiped out the tribe long ago. In a fit of rage, he took out a piece of roasted meat, then, his eyes gleaming, he grabbed some chili peppers and sprinkled them on the meat. But after only a few bites, a sudden burst of light stunned him. Zetian, overjoyed, quickly retreated a few steps. Haha, he's back. In his excited gaze, a figure enveloped in golden light appeared in the air with a flash of light. Golden sunlight instantly illuminated and covered the entire tribe. The tribe's people who were patrolling, and some who were sleeping, were startled and rushed towards the divine stone. Zetian squinted, looking up at the figure in the golden light, and said calmly, "You are the god of light." Su Yun floated a few meters in the air, and as soon as he appeared, he saw the middle-aged man standing near the divine stone. The man wore black clothes, was tall and imposing, and his rugged face exuded a cold, sinister aura. Suyun didn't answer the question, but a surge of spiritual energy emanated from him. After quickly scanning the entire tribe, he breathed a slight sigh of relief, then fixed his gaze on the middle-aged man before him. Glancing at the roasted meat in the man's hand, he immediately noticed the chili peppers sprinkled on it. His eyes instantly turned cold as he stared at the middle-aged man with a half-smile, saying, "My return has been somewhat presumptuous. I hope I haven't disturbed your enjoyment." His indifferent voice echoed through the heavens and earth, carrying a chilling aura. Chapter 345 Give me your things. Ziqian listened to the words in his ear without paying any attention, instead wearing a playful smile. "You're finally back. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Where did you go before?" He curiously sized up the god of light, guessing, "It seems you still have some secrets. Your tribe's things are really good, but I think you must have even better things on you. Give me your secrets and things, and I might consider letting you go." Zitian's expression was indifferent, as if he had become the master of this place, or as if he didn't take Suyun seriously at all. In his eyes, the god of light was just a fourth-level god, at most a powerful fourth-level god, but someone he could crush with a flick of his wrist. As he spoke, hundreds of Yanhuang tribesmen had already run over, and more were constantly joining, forming a thick human wall, their eyes warily fixed on the middle-aged man. "Alright, I almost forgot to introduce myself." Zitian suddenly remembered something, glanced around at the Yanhuang tribesmen, and fearing that this little god might not know his place, he arrogantly said, "I am Zitian, the divine son of the Z tribe, possessing the strength of level 7, saying this, he gave Suyun a contemptuous look in front of everyone and continued, "If you do as I say, I can spare your life." In his view, he had already revealed his strength, and this little god should no longer be so ignorant, realizing the gap between them, and then obediently offer up his possessions. The Yanhuang chieftain, the old priest, and many tribesmen instantly changed their expressions, their faces filled with anger. "Damn you!" Shouts of curses rang out. Zitian smiled, and a terrifying aura erupted from his entire body, pressing directly down on the Yanhuang tribesmen. Instantly, the nearly 1,000 Yanhuang tribesmen who were already preparing to attack changed their expressions drastically. The oppressive aura made it difficult for them to breathe, and even their bodies became somewhat uncontrollable. Zitian smiled with satisfaction, then looked at Suyun and casually pressed his aura against him. He had already anticipated the expression this man would make. However, just as he smiled, preparing to witness the god's frustrated, fearful, and helpless expression, he unexpectedly heard a cold voice. "Have you said enough?" Suyun looked at him coldly. "If you've said enough, you can die." With that, an overwhelming pressure surged from his body, breaking through the suppression he was under and pressing directly onto Zitian. At the same time, golden light shone brightly on his body. He had decided to attack. Zitian was stunned, unable to believe what he had heard. His first reaction was, what right does this guy have to resist? Wait, suddenly he sensed something was wrong. The pressure on him seemed. Before he could even recover from his shock, a blinding golden light appeared before his eyes. The golden light enveloped him completely, then lifted him directly into the air. The scorching heat also burned him at the same time, causing him to involuntarily let out a scream. A dense gray aura surged from his body, attempting to resist. Suyun slightly raised his right hand, looking up at Zitian, who was being carried into the air by the golden light, then clenched his fist tightly. A series of cracking sounds, accompanied by screams, rang out. Blood flowed from the corner of Zitian's mouth. He stared incredulously at the golden light that imprisoned him, shouting in shock, "Level 6. You're a level 6 god, how is this possible?" His painful cries, mixed with a piercing scream, fully expressed his shock. Zitian never imagined that he, who was previously a helpless level 4 god, could now become a ferocious level 6 god, a beastly beast. How could this be? He couldn't believe what had happened to cause such a rapid increase in strength. This speed of advancement, and most importantly, even though the god of light was a 6th level god, his own strength wasn't much weaker. He was comparable to a 7th level god. How could he have been suppressed by the god of light without using any divine magic? Zitian's face flushed red, but when he caught a glimpse of the excited faces of the Yanhuang people below, his expression turned a deep shade of liver, filled with resentment and anger. "Damn it, don't think I'm easy to bully," he cursed. He admitted that he had simply been caught off guard, which was why he had been defeated by an opponent of equal strength. Thinking this, a gray object in his right hand began to shimmer. It was a gray bracelet, covered with intricate and mysterious patterns, seemingly made of stone, exuding an ancient aura. As soon as the object began to glow, his aura surged upwards at an astonishing speed. In a short period, it more than doubled in strength. And this wasn't just the amplification effect of a divine artifact, it was an overall increase of more than double, with speed and everything else boosted, a special ability of this divine artifact. The effect of this terrifying boost was astonishing. Feeling the surging power within him, Zeon grinned maliciously. The gray energy around him surged, slowly pushing the golden light away. Zeon, his face full of malice, was about to retaliate. Suyun raised an eyebrow, glancing at his bracelet with some surprise. Seeing Zeon's attempt to resist, the Ark of the Covenant flew over from a distance and appeared on his body. It's this thing. Zeon was stunned. During this time, he had naturally seen this thing before, but fearing to disturb the god of light, and also because of the faint sense of danger emanating from it, he had temporarily ignored it. Seeing this thing appear, for some reason, Zeon had a bad premonition. Sure enough, the next second, as the Ark of the Covenant flashed with golden light, the power surging from his body suddenly began to dissipate. What? Zeon's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly tried to control the power within his body to continue flowing out. But as soon as it left his body, the energy began to dissipate again, as if using power was forbidden in this place. Before he could recover from his shock, the golden light that had been pushed aside surged up again without any obstruction, squeezing him fiercely. With cracking sounds, his bones began to shatter. No, you can't kill me. Zeon's eyes were filled with terror. He no longer cared about anything. My father god, he was about to say something threatening. But unfortunately, Suyun had no patience to listen anymore. He knew what Zeon was going to say without even hearing it. Since he had such a refined taste to wander around his tribe, he might as well stay forever. Suyun's right palm began to close. Zeon screamed in agony as his bones and flesh were squeezed together, almost turning into a bloody pulp. Seemingly realizing something, he cried out in terror. No, you can't. Suyun slammed his palm shut. PFFT, blood spurted out. Blood trickled down from the golden light. The pleas for mercy abruptly ceased. Chapter 346 The Treasure Delivering Boy. Seeing Zeon reduced to a bloody pulp, still dripping blood, Suyun frowned slightly. The next second, a ball of white holy flame appeared, rushing straight towards the blood mass. As the flames burned, the blood mass began to silently disintegrate and dissipate. A few seconds later, the guy who dared to wander around the tribe was completely reduced to nothingness, and two things appeared within the flames. Suyun waved his hand, and a gray bracelet inlaid with yellow stones appeared in his hand in the blink of an eye. Then, with a flash, he disappeared from the side of the Yanhuang tribesmen and returned to the divine stone space. After the enemy died, the old priest curiously looked at the golden light surrounding Suyun, wondering why its color had changed. He had been about to ask something, but seeing the god leave, worry filled his face. Judging from what that guy said, and the descriptions given by the people who went to the Thunder tribe earlier, it seems the tribe has offended a formidable enemy. He instructed his men to add more men to the night watch, then glanced at the chief, who understood and followed. Back in his hut, the old priest said worriedly, that evil tribe is rumored to be very powerful. I don't know if our tribe can hold out this time. Even the Thunder tribe admits they are inferior to that evil tribe. It's hard to imagine how powerful they must be. The chief scoffed. What's there to be afraid of? We have our god. Why should we fear that evil tribe? The old priest was still somewhat worried. We haven't given the god enough time. He hasn't recovered his strength yet. It's not suitable for him to confront that unknown god. In his mind, the god was naturally powerful. After all, he was the creator god. He just needed time to recover. If they faced other powerful beings during this time, they would likely be at a disadvantage. The chief, who had also been misled, frowned and fell into worry. Far away, within a wide city wall, rows of mud houses stood tall. Countless houses stretched for miles, making the entire tribe appear incredibly prosperous. At the center, a stone-carved structure towered high. On the throne sat a tall, gray-haired, fierce-looking middle-aged man. The instant Zeon died, he opened his eyes. A murderous glint flashed in his eyes. Good, very good, the evil god laughed in fury, a cold laugh. He had sensed Zedion's death the moment he died, and simultaneously gained access to his memories of that time. In just a short while, he clearly understood what had happened, including how Zedion died and the secrets of the Yanhuan tribe. Interesting, a tribe with so few people, yet so many good things, he sneered repeatedly. Even with his discerning eye, the divinely bestowed plants like chili peppers, the snowflake salt, and the methods of making porcelain were all novel and unique. If managed well, it could even generate substantial profits. Of course, what he valued most was the secret of the God of Light. The other party must have some secret, otherwise how could he have risen from a 4th-level god to a 6th-level god in such a short time? This was abnormal. Even with his knowledge, he couldn't imagine what could cause such a significant boost to God. This is absolutely an incredible secret. If I get it, the god of evil's eyes gleamed with greed, his heart filled with inquiry and determination. He absolutely had to find this secret and obtain it. Perhaps, he could even use this secret to advance to a powerful 8th-level god. As for the obstacles to obtaining this secret, that mere 6th-level god was nothing to him. A god who advanced through a secret had no foundation whatsoever. How could he compare to him? Not to mention, just the 3 powerful exclusive artifacts he possessed were far superior to that lucky fellow's. HMPH, the Ascension Bracelet is temporarily yours. Let you be smug for a while, the god of evil gritted his teeth. A flash of gray light appeared on his right wrist, revealing a gray bracelet identical to the one Su-Yun had obtained. The Ascension Bracelet was originally a 2-in-1 treasure, his most important artifact. A single bracelet could increase his strength by slightly more than double, and when combined, it could even triple it. He wouldn't have separated one bracelet for Zedion if he hadn't been worried about Zedion's safety. But unexpectedly, not only did the last divine son, Zedion, die, but he also lost one of his 2-in-1 Ascension bracelets. A mere 6th-level god, thinking of the tragic deaths of Zedion and the other 2, his eyes were filled with hatred. Whether for the secret or to avenge Zedion and the others, he wanted that god of light dead. Deadly. A flash of gray light, and his figure vanished from the divine throne, inside the pure white divine stone space. Su-Yun examined his 2 spoils of war. His first glance fell on the gray bracelet that seemed to amplify his strength. Holy divine power surged into the bracelet, beginning to clear away the remaining power. After a while, the bracelet flashed gray light, and a connection appeared in his mind. At the same time, a piece of information instantly surfaced in his mind, making him understand the effect of the bracelet. Overall strength increased by more than double. Su-Yun was somewhat delighted. The effect is quite similar to the blessing spell. Suddenly, a thought popped into his mind. If this thing amplified his strength and then he used the blessing spell, would it double? He hurriedly began to test it. After a while, he shook his head regretfully. I was really being delusional. I knew there was no such thing as a free lunch. The expected doubling did not occur, which disappointed him greatly. However, fortunately, there were no bad results, such as conflicting with a blessing spell. After experimentation, this thing could have a superimposed effect with a blessing spell. It was equivalent to using all of his original divine power to use the blessing spell, which could increase his strength by more than 3 times, and with this, the overall enhancement would be more than 4 times. This thing is the only divine artifact I've been able to use in all this time. That guy really is a treasure giver, Su-Yun muttered. Thinking this, his right hand's special ring flashed, and he put away the gray bracelet. Then, filled with anticipation, he looked at the bracelet inlaid with yellow stones. He naturally knew what it was. Divine power surged towards the bracelet, and in a flash of yellow light, he immediately sensed a space within it. Just as he focused his attention inside, Su-Yun was drawn to a cluster of glittering objects within the bracelet's space. Crystals of faith. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 347 The Evil God Who Came to Provoke Us. Su-Yun glanced around and was immediately astonished. With a wave of his hand, a large pile of glittering faith crystals appeared in the air, held aloft by light, accompanied by a series of crisp sounds. Powerful fluctuations of faith energy rippled through the void. Su-Yun grabbed the crystal with his right hand, and a dazzling crystal appeared in his hand. Sensing it, he discovered that this faith crystal had the highest energy among all the crystals in the pile. By comparison, it was about 100 times more powerful than a level 5 faith crystal. A level 7 faith crystal, Su-Yun murmured in surprise, then added, there are other faith crystals. Besides this one, there were 22 level 6 faith crystals left. Su-Yun waved his hand again, taking a level 6 faith crystal in his hand and sensing it. He found that the level 6 faith crystal had exactly 10 times the energy of a level 5 crystal, which surprised him greatly. This was completely different from before, when the increase was 5 or 6 times, but at level 6 it became 10 times. Su-Yun silently calculated for a moment, thinking to himself, based on the energy contained in the faith crystals, 3 level 7 faith crystals are basically enough to fully restore my divine power once. That means 22 level 6 crystals plus 1 level 7 crystal are just enough for one restoration, he said happily. With these, my strength will definitely increase a lot. His own complete divine power, plus the faith crystals, amplified by the blessing spell, and then combined with the gray bracelet, would increase his strength by about 8 times. If I had the faith power from the little black ball, it would be just enough to barely contend with a level 7 god once, Su-Yun murmured. After a while, he sighed. I'm still too poor. If I had 6 more, no, 3 more level 7 faith crystals, I would be confident in facing a level 7 god. It's just a pity, I'm a poor god. Su-Yun stroked his chin, and couldn't help but start thinking about his money-making plan. Forget it, I'll check how the tribe is doing recently. Su-Yun quickly scanned the tribe with his mental power. A few seconds later, he was surprised by the number of people in the tribe. Nearly 9,000? That's a huge increase. He quickly understood why. When he went to the modern world, he had instructed the old priest to work with the fire god tribe to harvest the rock tribe members who had lost the protection of the rock goddess. Now it seemed the results were quite good. And judging from the mental state of the newly recruited tribe's people, the old priest was extremely cautious and followed his design process meticulously. He had led those people onto the right path, bathing them in holy light. For example, they had a fixed daily prayer gathering, and they had to recite a short section of the creation story or a prayer. If they couldn't, they wouldn't get food. Becoming a believer immediately elevated their status and improved their treatment, and so on. With this combination, except for those with extremely strong wills, almost everyone else was led onto the correct path of holy light. This was only because the tribe's population was too small to absorb too many rock tribes people, otherwise, it could have doubled. They barely reached the threshold of a large tribe, Su-Yun thought, stroking his chin. It just didn't quite fit his current status as a level 6 god. After counting the number of people, he turned his attention to the bows and arrows in the tribe. Scanning the ancient-looking bows and arrows with his mental energy, he nodded in satisfaction. Although the design wasn't great, it seemed they had been made. Glancing at the bowstring, he instantly recognized the material. Looks like they made a deal with the fire god tribe after all. They used hemp for the bowstring. Speaking of hemp, he remembered the silkworms and tribute rice he had ordered a couple of days ago. I wonder if those two things have arrived yet. Su-Yun decided to check on the delivery at the community security guard's office the next day in the real world. Let's deal with the mulberry trees first. Su-Yun glanced at the divine stone space. In the clean, spacious white space, there were over 130 mulberry trees. These mulberry trees varied in appearance, with a small portion growing in strange shapes, looking deformed. Furthermore, the leaves of wild mulberry trees were very different from those of professionally raised silkworm mulberry trees. Each leaf was very rough, with fine hairs on them. Su-Yun frowned, then his figure flashed, instantly appearing beside a mulberry tree over a meter tall. He stretched out his right hand and placed it on the rough trunk, his divine power surging within him, then flowing back into the tree. As soon as the divine power entered the tree instinctively felt a thirst, greedily absorbing it. With the mulberry tree's cooperation and the domineering nature of the divine power, the entire tree was quickly occupied by it. A series of sounds of sprouting and growth rang out rapidly. With a series of creaking sounds, the mulberry tree began to grow taller and shoot, tiny buds sprouting from every branch, and old leaves falling one by one, scattering all over the ground. Looking at the bare mulberry tree, its branches covered with faintly glowing buds, Su-Yun's lips twitched. This change was too fast. Anyone who didn't know better would think it had been injected with hormones. Su-Yun continued his transformation. One by one, the mulberry trees rapidly changed, the taller ones becoming more upright, and the deformed ones transforming into normal shapes. Looking at the transformed mulberry tree, Su-Yun murmured, "Find some time to plant it." After doing this, he closed his eyes and began to conserve his energy, preparing to await the arrival of the 7th-level god. It was obvious that after killing 3 divine sons, the other party would definitely retaliate. They were probably already on their way. Time passed quickly. Soon, less than half an hour had passed when a change occurred. A terrifying divine might swept in from afar, pressing down directly on the entire tribe. Exclamations of alarm rang out. Whether sleeping or patrolling, everyone was forced to the ground by the pressure. They were covered in cold sweat, their faces pale, their eyes filled with astonishment. What happened? Before they could even ask this question, a cold, harsh shout accompanied the pressure. "Come out!" The fierce, rough voice instantly resounded throughout the entire Yanheron tribe. When the pressure swept across the tribe, the old priest and the chief, who were struggling to maintain their composure, instantly changed their expressions, realizing what had happened. Their eyes were filled with worry. "It's the evil god. Won't the god be alright?" The evil god floated dozens of meters in the air. Looking down at the Yanheron tribe, a murderous glint in his eyes. If it weren't for the fear of destroying his prized possessions, he would have destroyed the tribe with a wave of his hand to vent his hatred. But just wait, once I get what I want, I will definitely torture that god of light in front of these mortals. Only then could he vent his hatred. Inside the divine stone space. "They're here." Su-Yun's eyes narrowed. Without thinking, he flashed out of the divine stone space in the blink of an eye, quickly flying into the sky. In a flash, Su-Yun appeared a dozen meters away from the newcomer. The evil god looked at him, sneered, and shouted, "Insolent bastard, it was you who killed 3 of my divine sons." Chapter 348 Grayish-White World. In the darkness of the night, moonlight streamed down like gauze. Dozens of meters in the air. Su-Yun remained silent, coldly observing him, offering no answer to his question. "You didn't anticipate this day, did you?" The evil god sneered. "Knowing who I am, you still dare to kill my offspring. I don't know if you're bold or stupid. With your level 6 strength, you think you can contend with me, killing my divine son? Foolish enough not to take me seriously. Today you'll pay the price." The evil god's malevolent red eyes glared at him, a powerful pressure surging forth, directly towards his target. The air around Su-Yun distorted, causing him to frown. He felt a slight sense of suffocation. An ordinary person standing there would likely suffocate. The evil god sneered, "If you don't want your tribe to suffer, then follow me." With that, he moved, flying upwards like lightning. Su-Yun, who had been secretly on guard, frowned slightly. "What's this guy up to?" He followed. A gale swept past, the wind whistling in his ears. The 2 figures soared rapidly into the sky, moving like the wind and lightning, leaving no afterimages. A few minutes later, Su-Yun Fei, high in the sky, was secretly astonished. This was the first time he had flown so high in this other world. He subconsciously looked down at the ground, where everything appeared incredibly small. This scene was somewhat familiar, almost identical to viewing the ground from space in the real world. Even more exaggerated. Because Su-Yun Fei realized that, according to calculations, the distance he had covered in those few minutes was at least 1,000,000 meters. Such an exaggerated height would have been considered space-time on Earth, yet here. Su-Yun Fei took a moment to look up at the sky, at the moon overhead and the moonlight streaming down. He discovered that at this height, he had no idea how far away the moon was. He was secretly amazed, the distance between heaven and earth was so exaggerated. Judging from this world was absolutely enormous. Just as he was thinking this, the evil god above had stopped. Su-Yun Fei was now 100 meters away from him. The god of evil looked at him with disdain and said, "You're really slow. I had to slow down and wait for you." He then grinned maliciously, "But you're safe here now, so I don't have to worry about you destroying your tribe." "What do you mean?" Su-Yun glared at him. "What do I mean?" The god of evil smiled enigmatically. "Things from your tribe will belong to me from now on. I don't want my precious possessions to be damaged because of a despicable fellow like you." Su-Yun almost laughed in anger. So that was his plan. Was he really so sure he would win? The god of evil continued his incessant chatter. "The ascension bracelet is with you, isn't it?" Seeing that Su-Yun didn't answer, he didn't care and asked the question he cared about most. "Your ascension speed is abnormal. What secret do you have that allows you to advance so quickly?" His eyes gleamed with inquiry and greed as he stared intently at Su-Yun. If you reveal your secret, I might consider letting you go." A murderous glint flashed in Su-Yun's eyes as he laughed. "You two are truly father and son, even your words are almost identical." The evil god's eyes turned cold. "Fine, don't tell me then. Once I capture you, I'll find a way to get it out of you." He didn't want to waste any more time and decided to capture this god alive. Then he'd have plenty of ways to torment him. The next moment, an overwhelming aura erupted from him, pressing down hard on Su-Yun as he raised his right hand. Gray light shone, powerful energy fluctuations emanated, and the surrounding space began to distort. He grinned maliciously, already preparing to savor the fear that the god was about to experience. However, just as he was about to strike, an unexpected situation arose. The ever-vigilant Su-Yun also moved when the evil god made a move. Divine power surged, and a dazzling light of blessing magic emanated from his body. A flash of light appeared in his hand, and a large pile of faith crystals appeared, 51 level 5 faith crystals, 22 level 6 faith crystals, and 1 level 7 faith crystal. The next instant, they shattered and were absorbed by Su-Yun in the blink of an eye. Simultaneously, he activated the small black sphere within his body. With over 6 million people on the other side of the real world constantly praying, the power of faith surged forth, and his aura erupted at that moment. Unfortunately, it was immediately suppressed by the aura of the evil god, seemingly in a death throes. The evil god smiled faintly. However, the next moment, his expression froze. Su-Yun's aura began to rapidly increase. 2 times. 4 times. 7 times. 12 times. In an instant, Su-Yun's aura reversed course, becoming incredibly powerful, directly breaking through the shroud of the evil god's aura. The two divine auras collided. Boom. 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 A series of explosive sounds echoed through the air. The once bright night sky instantly dimmed, and the celestial phenomena began to change. In the blink of an eye, this series of transformations was completed in a short time, so fast that the evil god didn't even have time to react. He was completely stunned. The god of evil sensed the changes in the god of light, his face filled with shock and horror. He knew that the ant he had once easily crushed had transformed. It had become a formidable opponent, one he could no longer ignore. Judging from the aura emanating from this being, while still somewhat inferior to a 7th-level god, it was no longer insurmountable. This scene was also very familiar. Ziyin and Zifen had perished for the same reason. How was this possible? He was utterly incredulous. In his view, advancing from level 4 to level 5 was already incredible, but to advance from level 6 to level 7, what could possibly have such an effect? Even the Ascension Bracelet, in its complete state, could only increase the power by 3 times. This was already many times greater. "What secret do you hold?" the god of evil couldn't help but shout. At this moment, while shocked, a deep greed also arose within him. Such a dramatic improvement, the god of light must possess a tremendous secret or treasure. Just as he finished shouting, a blinding light flashed before his eyes, and a white light, several kilometers wide and radiating immense energy, tentatively attacked him. The void trembled, and for an instant, the area within a dozen kilometers became as bright as day. HMPH, the god of evil, with an arrogant expression, waved his hand, and an equally massive gray energy surged forth. The two collided. Boom. Gray and white hues separated the heavens and earth. Chapter 349 The Battle of Heaven's Collapse. A violent collision resounded, accompanied by the constant sound of corrosion. Gray and white clashed like fire and water. The god of evil's expression changed, his face darkening as he looked at the two evenly matched forces. Logically, even if the god of light's strength had increased strangely, he should be the stronger one, yet they were evenly matched. In a flash, he understood what was happening. Damn it, my power is actually countered by him, he cursed inwardly. Although the counter wasn't too severe, it was enough to bridge the gap in strength between them. This guy's power counters mine. Once I get his secrets out, I absolutely cannot let him live. A red glint flashed in his eyes. Finally, he secretly increased his power. Boom. In the heavens and earth, gray completely overwhelmed white, the white light retreating steadily. Is that all the strength you have? The god of evil laughed arrogantly. Su-Yun frowned. How could he not see through the opponent's subtle maneuvers? The god of evil's response was a cold snort. Another beam of white light struck. The two began to clash. Boom. 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 Intense light flashed across the heavens and earth, accompanied by deafening roars. At one moment, Suyun's body shone brightly, and in the next instant, the world became incredibly bright, with white light covering everything within sight. Within a radius of hundreds of thousands of meters, the white light filled the area, resembling a vast white ocean. Night had instantly returned to day. Boom! The white seawater surged towards the god of evil as if the sky had collapsed. The god of evil's expression changed, and in haste, a similarly massive gray energy surged forth. However, compared to Suyun's effortless control resulting from constant training, manipulating such a large-scale energy still put him under some pressure. Boom! 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 As the two vast energies collided, space began to distort, seemingly on the verge of shattering. A deafening roar, accompanied by a gale, swept across the heavens and earth. With a mutual dissipation of the two energies, the white ocean was shattered into light that scattered throughout the world. Within a radius of hundreds, even thousands of kilometers, everything was engulfed in light at that moment. The impact of this attack was vast and exaggerated, its influence extending far beyond thousands of kilometers. Even an area 80 or 90,000 kilometers away, comparable to the entire territory of Egypt in the real world, was completely drawn in and shocked by this terrifying white light. One by one, the gods stared in astonishment at the direction from which the light emanated. What terrifying power! Who is it? Which powerful god is it? I thought I was powerful enough. Level 6, no, level 7, the gods at a great distance were filled with speculation, utterly shocked and shaken. Those closer to the Yanhuang tribe, such as the Thunder tribe, the Fire God tribe, and the Gale tribe, gods who had previously interacted with Suyun, stared intently in that direction, their hearts trembling. The strongest being within this area was the god of thunder, yet even he felt a chill run down his spine as he watched the power erupt from afar in that instant. This power, even the aftershocks alone could annihilate me. Shocked, he instinctively guessed, it's definitely a 7th level god. There's a 7th level god nearby. Sensing the energy, he suddenly realized something. His expression changing drastically. Could it be? Wait. Just as he thought this, he squinted at the enormous white light erupting from that direction, an unbelievable thought popping into his mind. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. What am I thinking? The god of thunder shook his head frantically, vehemently denying his own guess. How could the god of light be a 7th level god? He denied it for a long time. However, looking at that familiar white light. This is the power of light unique to the god of light. The god of thunder's bearded face was filled with stunned disbelief. The authority of light couldn't possibly be second. He stared in disbelief into the distance. While the god of thunder was still in shock, the god of fire and the god of forest, after their initial shock, also had the same guess when they saw the familiar white light. And because of the uniqueness of the authority, they all felt disbelief. God of light. Level 7, while the battle shocked the entire area within a radius of 80,000 to 90,000 kilometers, the battle between Suyun and the god of evil had only just reached its climax. Yanhuang tribe. Each tribesman stared at the raging winds, their eyes fixed on the sky above. God, looking at the power that resembled a natural disaster, they felt a profound shock. Millions of meters in the sky. After the devastating attack dissipated, the god of evil stood on the raging winds, looking up at the god of light, his face incredibly grim. Suddenly, he sneered, I admit you're powerful, but this ends here. As he spoke, his right hand suddenly flashed with gray light, revealing a gray bracelet covered in mysterious patterns. The next second, his aura instantly surged. In an instant, his strength more than doubled, and a terrifying aura soared into the sky. You truly surprised me. Ha ha ha, the god of evil laughed wildly. But now, what do you have to fight me with? With each clash of attacks, gray began to overwhelm white light, a one-sided battle. Darkness once again enveloped the sky. Suyun's expression changed slightly, and he quickly dodged. With his strength doubled from a level 7 foundation, the situation had instantly reversed. The god of evil's heart stirred, and tens of thousands of gray spears appeared in the night sky, each radiating a terrifying aura and releasing massive energy fluctuations. Suyun felt a strong sense of crisis, his brows furrowing tightly. A yellow light flashed from his special ring, and a gray bracelet appeared in his hand, which he instantly put on. His aura surged. However, unfortunately, the Ascension bracelet could only amplify basic strength, it couldn't double the effect of the blessing spell. Seeing the gray bracelet and sensing Suyun's increased aura, the god of evil's face darkened further. This feeling of aiding the enemy fueled his anger, and he sensed something was wrong. However, the next second, he laughed, a boastful laugh. Ha ha ha, your strength is indeed abnormal. The Ascension Bracelet can't save you. With this difference in strength, let's see how you fight me now. He looked at Su-Yun with smug satisfaction and mockery. The next second, a thought struck him, and tens of thousands of terrifying gray spears, like lightning, hurtled towards Su-Yun. They filled the sky like raindrops, a truly frightening sight. In the distance, sensing the surging aura of the gray forces, the gods observing the battle couldn't help but think to themselves. The result is about to happen. Another 7th level god is going to die. The expressions of the thunder god and the other gods instantly changed. The god of light, he's going to lose. Chapter 350. A one-sided difference. As the god of evil moved, Su-Yun also made his move. Healing spell, a layered, tender green light, resembling a beautiful aurora borealis, seemed indistinguishable from it at that moment. Tens of thousands of meters in the sky were filled with green aurora, simultaneously shining towards the god of evil. While wielding his spear in attack, the god of evil's mind stirred, and gray energy rapidly formed a massive gray eggshell shield, completely enveloping him. HMPH, the god of evil smiled smugly, about to say something. However, at that very moment, the green light, which he had expected to be blocked, ignored the thick gray eggshell and pierced straight through in his contracted pupils. Unsurprisingly, the green aurora shone upon him. Just then, the god of evil suddenly sensed something amiss, his body inexplicably weakening. Even his surging aura diminished slightly. Good tricks, the god of evil sneered, a dying struggle, you'll still die. At that moment, his tens of thousands of gray spears approached Su-Yun, about to strike. He secretly intensified his attack, attempting to kill the god of light with a single blow. Su-Yun watched the attack, his expression turning serious. Then, a golden sphere suddenly appeared beside him. As the attacks rained down, the golden sphere transformed into a semicircular shield, firmly blocking his path. Bang! 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 The spears, radiating immense energy, struck the golden shield directly. Su-Yun, seeing the sturdy shield, had just breathed a sigh of relief when his expression changed drastically. Crack! 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 Cracks appeared on the brilliant golden shield, as if it would shatter at any moment. Not good. Instantly, Su-Yun knew the reason. The difference in strength between him and the god of evil was too great. Even with so many continuous attacks, the golden wheel couldn't withstand it. Su-Yun's figure flashed, retreating quickly. The next moment, boom! The once invincible golden wheel shattered into golden fragments scattered everywhere. Facing the spear that was even faster than him, Su-Yun's expression changed slightly, and he quickly unleashed the second golden wheel. Boom boom boom. A rain of attacks fell, crack crack crack, golden fragments flew. The third one. The world was completely covered by the roar. When it subsided, Su-Yun looked at the shield, which was full of cracks and seemed about to break, and his brows furrowed deeply. The difference in strength was so great that the god of evil, who had been full of confidence, was somewhat astonished at this scene. Then, he clapped his hands and sneered, "Not bad, very exciting." Then, he sighed and said regretfully, "But, how many more times can you withstand my divine magic like this? Having used divine magic so many times, your divine power will be exhausted sooner or later," he said contemptuously. Su-Yun frowned upon hearing this. He was naturally aware of this as well. The difference in basic strength is huge. He quickly thought for a moment. "Try that move, I say, light and darkness will separate." A cold voice drifted across the sky, and a scene that astonished the god of evil unfolded. In an instant, darkness descended. A pure darkness swept across the heavens and earth, enveloping everything in darkness. It was like the darkness at the beginning of time, the chaos before the world was born. Extreme darkness enveloped everything. Even the gods watching from afar, who had expected the fall of a 7th level god, were shocked by the area lacking a huge patch of light, as if darkness had descended. What's going on? Just as they were wondering, in the pure darkness, the god of evil was secretly astonished. He discovered that even his own vision had vanished. This was unbelievable. He was a god, how could he be trapped in darkness? And the move used by the god of light seemed even more evil than his own evil authority. Just as the god of light was thinking this, after lingering in the darkness for a while, a sudden, intense sense of crisis struck him, instantly putting him on alert. Without thinking, a powerful gray energy erupted from his body, forcefully pushing away the darkness. Su-Yun, observing this scene from the shadows, frowned. In the short time he had used the Eternal Night spell, his divine power had decreased by 30%. It's still too much. Eliminating the light from the god of evil required a great deal of divine power. After casting the blessing spell, he had no divine power left. Especially since the opponent had used divine power to protect himself after sensing danger, eliminating the light became extremely difficult. After a moment of contemplation and some calculations, Su-Yun decided to abandon the frequent use of the Eternal Night spell. Just as the god of evil was filled with doubt and uncertainty, the cold voice continued to resound. I say, light and darkness will reunite. In an instant, it seemed as if the first ray of light in the world shone forth. Endless radiance emanated from Su-Yun, instantly illuminating the darkness. Light. As far as the eye could see, darkness was rapidly covered by light, like the arrival of dawn. The brightness of this light was no less than that of the previous attack, shocking the beings in the distance and filling them with speculation. Judging from the situation, it seemed that the 7th level god who had been at a disadvantage had unleashed his power. The 7th level god was indeed not so easy to kill. On the battlefield, as the darkness was pierced, terrifying changes began to occur. Anything that had been shrouded in darkness, including wisps of invisible dust, instantly began to dissipate. As the dust settled, the world was instantly cleared. The god of evil's eyes narrowed. Suddenly, he lowered his head in shock. What? He saw that, without him noticing, wisps of dust had appeared around his divine power, including on his body. A part of his divine body had actually dissipated into gray dust and disappeared. The god of evil was stunned. As the dust settled, the sharp pain from his body instantly brought him back to his senses. In just a moment, a layer of skin had peeled off his body, and in some places, chunks of flesh had disappeared, leaving his wounds pitted and scarred, with divine blood gleaming from them. You, the evil god was enraged, staring intently at Su-Yun. Drops of divine blood dripped from his body, falling from the sky. He never imagined he would be injured. Injured by a 6th level god, and so inexplicably at that. Good, very good, the evil god smiled. The next second, an unbelievable scene unfolded. His previously pitted and severely injured body began to heal. Strands of gray energy emerged from the wounds, then transformed directly into flesh and blood, healing the wounds at a measured pace. This is, Su-Yun frowned. Aren't you quite smug? The evil god laughed, his eyes filled with malice. You think that's all a level 7 god can do? This is the difference between you level 6 gods and us level 7 gods, a gap you can't bridge. Chapter 351 I say. Your attack has no effect on me, the god of evil said calmly. And how many times can you use that kind of attack? As he spoke, most of his injuries had healed, and in another 10 seconds or so, they would be completely healed, truly terrifying. Hearing this, Su-Yun's eyes flashed, and he thought to himself, divine power transformed into flesh and blood, the survival ability of a 7th level god has suddenly increased to this level. Judging from the current situation, he even doubted that even if the golden wheel were inserted into the god of evil's brain, this guy might not necessarily die. The god of evil, unaware that Su-Yun had guessed most of the situation in such a short time, was enraged and decided to kill this god of light with all his might. At this moment, a golden beam of light struck his body like lightning. The god of evil, relying on his overwhelming strength and speed, quickly dodged to the side. Apart from a charred gash on his arm, he suffered no other external injuries. Moreover, even that wound was already in the process of healing, albeit slowly. He was still somewhat alarmed by the golden pillar's attack speed. If they were both at level 6, he might have been hit directly. Thinking of this, he looked at the terrifyingly powerful god of light before him, his killing intent deepening. I absolutely cannot let him live, otherwise, when he becomes a level 7 god, I definitely won't be his match. His thoughts raced, filled with apprehension. However, while secretly thinking this, he outwardly maintained a smug expression, wanting to make this guy experience helplessness and despair. He arrogantly declared, "This is the difference between us. With the difference in power, your divine magic will have no effect on me," Su-Yun said expressionlessly. As soon as he finished speaking, something on the god of evil began to glow with a gray light. It was a black armband hanging on his right arm, covered with mysterious patterns and an ancient aura, just like the Ascension bracelet. The god of evil's heart stirred, and the next second, he activated the artifact's effect. A flash of gray light appeared on his body, and then 2 balls of gray energy detached from him, changing in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, 3 identical evil gods appeared in the air, each radiating a terrifying aura. Suyun frowned, observing them carefully. Unlike the true form of the evil god, the other two possessed significantly weaker auras. He glanced at them briefly and then frowned. These two clones have the same imposing presence as the evil god before he was enhanced by the bracelet. In other words, if the true form of the evil god hadn't used the Ascension bracelet, what appeared before him now were 3 identical level 7 gods. Another powerful divine artifact. You've managed to force me to use my full strength. You have reason to be proud, the evil god laughed heartily. As he finished speaking, a flash of divine artifact light appeared on his body, and then all 3 simultaneously unleashed divine arts. In fact, the divine arts of the true form were amplified several times by the divine artifact. A pair of broad, gray wings sprouted from the bodies of the 3 evil gods. Boom, boom, boom. The moonlight vanished, and the sky completely darkened. Black feathers covering the sky rang out with a sound of sharp weapons piercing the air, as the feathers flooded towards Suyun like a torrent. Suyun's expression changed drastically, a strong sense of crisis engulfing him. 3 7th level gods, one of whom was even more terrifying. These 3 divine techniques combined were simply unstoppable. Even with his heaven-defying combat power, he couldn't overcome the difference in quality and quantity. What to do? He quickly thought of a solution. Seeing the attack about to engulf the god of light, the god of evil had also anticipated this. He knew the god of light couldn't resist it all. Therefore, he had already foreseen the exhilarating scene that was about to unfold. Weak insect, let's see how you resist this time. Die, crush into pieces. Ha ha ha. The god of evil's anger subsided, and he laughed arrogantly. However, just as he watched the attack about to engulf the god of light, he saw the god of light take out something that looked somewhat familiar. A dazzling golden light shone from Suyun's hand, piercing through all the gloom. The next moment, the sea of feathers in the sky stopped. Suyun's cold voice then resounded throughout the heavens and earth. Attack ineffective. The god of evil looked at this scene, completely dumbfounded. The sea of gray feathers in the air, which had been still for a moment, suddenly began to disintegrate, turning into gray energy in the blink of an eye before vanishing into the world. Impossible. The god of evil stared at the god of light in disbelief. As the feathers dissipated, Suyun secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Feeling the rapidly depleting faith power within the Ark of the Covenant, he felt a pang of pain. He had thought for a long time but couldn't think of any other way. He could only use the Ark. Unfortunately, his strength and divine power were insufficient. The Ark alone couldn't stop the god of evil's attack. He could only use the faith power contained within it. In a short time, to stop this attack, the faith power contained within the Ark had decreased by 5%. What is that thing? The god of evil stared at the Ark with shock and greed. Suyun looked at him coldly, without answering, his voice continuing to resound throughout the world. I said, you cannot move. What nonsense are you spouting? The god of evil paused, then burst into laughter, thinking this god of light was a madman. How could this be? A thought crossed his mind, and he tried to move. However, the divine voice, like the ultimate truth of heaven and earth, resounded at that moment. At this moment, Suyun seemed to have transformed into the creator of the world, possessing the authority to establish all rules. The rules descended. The god of evil sneered, about to act, when he was horrified to discover that he couldn't move. What did you do? He immediately remembered his earlier words, his face filled with shock. Suyun looked at him coldly, without answering, and continued, I said, no. The god of evil felt an inexplicable fear, roaring as his body flashed with ray light. One after another, spears radiating immense energy rapidly appeared from the void. You cannot attack, the cold voice rang out a moment. The god of evil stared blankly as the spears that appeared from the void vanished rapidly. Suyun slowly walked towards the god of evil in the air, each step feeling like a blow to the god of evil's heart. The god of evil tried several times to attack but couldn't move, and was immediately horrified, shouting, what have you done? How could this be? This. Suyun didn't reply, but with a flick of his right hand, a golden wheel appeared. He grasped it in his hand. A blinding golden light flashed. A gigantic, endless golden glazed sword of light appeared, reaching to the heavens. Suyun's face was cold, his right hand gripping the golden sword that pierced the clouds, its aura overwhelming, and he slashed towards his target. The golden light was blinding, accompanied by a shrill whistling sound, and the god of evil was terrified. A huge gray shield divine spell appeared in the void in the blink of an eye. You can't kill, I say, You can't defend against it." Before the god of evil could finish speaking, his face completely froze. The shield that appeared vanished the next second. No. Chapter 352 Battle Results. The golden, shimmering light of the sword flashed dazzlingly, its whistling sound cutting through the air deafening. The god of evil was filled with terror. Just looking at the attack overhead, he knew that if he were struck, he would be finished. Even as a 7th-level god, without any defense, he couldn't withstand such an attack. The golden sword, its momentum soaring, barely touched the god of evil's head before a bloody gash appeared. The sword continued downwards, poised to cleave him in two from head to toe. But at that moment, Suyun's expression changed slightly. The golden sword had barely cleaved the god of evil's head when a strange change occurred. Gray light emanated from his neck, as if a divine artifact had been activated. At that instant, a peculiar fluctuation appeared. The fluctuation enveloped the god of evil, and then his figure vanished in a blur. Only a pool of divine blood remained, along with the echo of the god of evil's last, venomous voice. "I will kill you." With that final, resentful cry, the golden sword sliced through the air, leaving nothing but emptiness. He escaped. Spatial fluctuations. Suyun frowned, staring at the spot where the god of evil had vanished, and at the two clones that had turned into gray energy and disappeared. He quickly scanned the area within a few hundred kilometers with his mental power, but found nothing. In an instant, his mood turned heavy. He never expected that the god of evil possessed a special teleportation artifact. This meant the Ark of the Covenant's power hadn't been able to exert its full restraining effect. Although it was said to be immobile, in his mind it simply meant immobility, without any connection to spatial teleportation. Ultimately, the Ark of the Covenant's effectiveness depended on his own thinking. If he had considered restricting space, the god of evil wouldn't have escaped. It was simply a matter of ignoring it. Who would have thought the opponent possessed special abilities and could simply restrict space? That would mean expending even more faith power. If he hadn't known beforehand that the god of evil possessed a special artifact, he might not have even considered restricting it. Seeing that the Ark of the Covenant had consumed 39% of his faith power in one trip, his mood remained heavy. Recalling the evil god's final harsh words, Suyun's heart sank even further. "I must improve my strength as soon as possible, otherwise," he had already used up all his faith crystals, and his blessing spell had been reduced by more than half. If the evil god returned next time, the outcome would be unpredictable. Even the Ark of the Covenant could only stop him once more, and the other side would definitely be more cautious and well-prepared next time. The Ark of the Covenant's abilities had already been partially revealed. Whether it would still be effective was another matter. In the end, the Ark of the Covenant is just an external thing. Ultimately, I still have to rely on myself. If I were level 7, I wouldn't need the Ark of the Covenant's assistance. I could directly defeat him, beating him so badly his own mother wouldn't recognize him. Suyun made a decision in his heart, to improve his strength as soon as possible. Night fell, moonlight shone down. Many trees were bathed in moonlight, and suddenly, a spatial fluctuation emanated from a spot several meters above the head of one of the large trees. The evil god, shrouded in fluctuation, appeared in this place. As soon as he appeared, he couldn't help but cry out in pain. He reached out and covered his head, waves of sharp pain making him dizzy. The wound on his head was a good half-finger deep, any later and his entire head would have been split open. If it weren't for the crucial moment when he was teleported away by the special transfer ability of his third exclusive artifact, even with his powerful regenerative abilities, he would have been in grave danger. Thinking of this, the evil god's eyes filled with resentment and hatred. "Just wait, I'll go back and kill you sooner or later, I'll let you live a little longer." His voice was shrill, as if coated with poison. As he spoke, he thought of the horrific and incomprehensible scene from not long ago, and still felt a tremor in his heart. What was that? The evil god knew that the bizarre situation must have been caused by that unknown golden artifact. Thinking of this, he felt both fear and greed. An artifact that could allow a 6th-level god to defeat a 7th-level god, and possess such terrifying and powerful abilities, was definitely a top-tier artifact. "Mine, it will be mine sooner or later," he murmured greedily. However, the thought of the artifact's strangeness sent a chill down his spine. He had to be fully prepared before going. Gray energy seeped from his wound, slowly healing him. The god of evil's eyes flickered as he frantically considered his options. Defeating that strange god of light alone would be difficult and too dangerous. It was best to find some helpers. Thinking of helpers, The god of evil suddenly remembered something and took something out of his person. It was a pale orange square crystal, about a third the size of his palm, exquisitely transparent. This was a very special artifact he had obtained by chance. Should I go into that place? The god of evil stared at the crystal, his eyes filled with hesitation. No, those guys are all mysterious. Nobody knows their identities. It's too dangerous. He suddenly felt a sense of fear and immediately rejected the idea. He didn't understand those guys at all. Who knew what was hidden beneath their facades? What if he was unlucky enough to find a powerful figure who wanted to kill him? The god of evil shuddered and quickly put the square orange crystal away. I can only go find those few enemies, the evil god thought reluctantly. As a regional overlord, he naturally knew the other 7th level gods outside his territory, but their relationship wasn't good. If I don't pay some price to get them to take action, the evil god felt a pang of heartache. However, thinking of the god of light, whom he wished he could crush, his eyes filled with madness. Even if I have to pay a price, I will. Just as he was thinking this, he suddenly thought of something, and his eyes lit up. He could tell them about some of the treasures the god of light possessed, and they would definitely be tempted, so he wouldn't have to pay anything. As for the treasures that should belong to the god of light after his death, although he would feel heartache at being given them away, compared to the death of the god of light, they were nothing. God of light, you're doomed this time, ha ha ha. Suddenly, he burst into maniacal laughter. The cold, smug laughter, as if he was about to get what he wanted, echoed in the silent forest, eerie and chilling. Millions of meters above the ground. After pondering for a moment, Su Yun moved swiftly, flying back to the tribe. Yanhuang tribe. In the open space, a large, dark crowd surrounded the altar. The old priest and others looked up and noticed the night sky had become quiet, no longer bursting with intense white light, and they couldn't help but feel worried. Won't the god be in trouble? The 20-something-year-old Shi Tao asked anxiously. The middle-aged man beside him, Kuang, though also worried, still said confidently, "Don't be afraid, the god will win." End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.